Hey Browns fans, this is your chance to join the company of some of the Browns' all-time greats on the first ever Browns fan cruise. Picture this. For 5 unforgettable days, you're sailing across the beautiful Caribbean Sea, reliving the Browns' greatest moments, getting autographs, snapping photos, and celebrating on the beach with your favorite Browns alumni, like Josh Cribbs, Webster Slaughter, Eric Metcalf, and a dozen others. Book now and take advantage of our easy, budget-friendly payment plans on this once-in-a-lifetime, all-inclusive cruise adventure. The clock's ticking, Browns fans. To book your cabin and for more information, visit brownsfancruise.com or call 216-284-6472 today. Browns Fan Cruise, where diehard fans and Browns alumni come together for the trip of a lifetime. Don't wait. Secure your spot today. And go Browns!
It's time for the Burning River Sportscast. Break out the good stuff because your Cleveland Browns have punched their ticket, fanned their fanny, and crossed the River Styx right into the 2024 playoffs. That's right, a team with 25% of their starters on IR, a team missing a generational talent at running back, and a team that had to start 4 different quarterbacks during the season is not only going, but is poised to make some noise in this postseason. No other team has faced this much adversity and overcome so much that they are as battle-tested as can be, and with the resurgence of Joe Flacco at the helm, this team is as dangerous as they have been all season long. For all things signed, that's right, old times gone by, and for just the 3rd time since 1999, your Browns are in the playoffs, and maybe for the first time, they reek of a team of destiny, and a team that no one wants to play. And we'll break it all down for you next on the Burning River Sportscast.
And the legend of Cleveland Browns quarterback Joe Flacco continues to grow.
The greatest of all time.
It's Anthony Schwartz, your old pal. It says there was a tweet that gave like a series of events. And it said basically the tweet said Anthony Schwartz drops a pass on whatever down to cost them the game. Leads to this, leads to this, leads to this, leads to Flacco being the quarterback of the Browns go to the playoffs. And Anthony Schwartz retweeted it and said, "Don't say I didn't do anything for you, Cleveland."
Dude.
What a dick. That's a fair assessment. I can't really fight back.
So,
why does my co-host have to be so sharp?
I'm the sharpest crew alive.
The thing with Cincinnati, though, is they're all fair weather fans. When they're winning, everybody's a fan. It's all Who Days. It's everything else. When they're losing, it's crickets down here. You don't hear anything. I ran into J.W. Johnson while I was at Joe Thomas's introduction. He was like, "What's it like being in hostile territory?" I was like, "It's only hostile when they're winning."
But for now, I'm the king of the North, so suck it! Everybody can suck it!
That was the most electric and fun game I have ever been to since 1999 when we came back. That was an absolute... The atmosphere was insane. What they did with the laser light show and your cell phones, and that was amazing. It was just it was great. And then we jumped out in front of them real fast and just pretty much ended the game in the first quarter and said, "We're done. This is how it's going to be."
Next up, we got the Browns traveling to the southern tip of Ohio and taking on the Bengals. Some may call it Kentucky.
It's basically Kentucky. There's no airport there.
And then watch him hop over the barricade and down somebody's beer, which I was like, I don't know if I would have done that. But I wish I would have known that.
I'm sure he's got a fine coming his way.
I'm sure he's got an upset stomach coming in his way.
I want you to blow my mind.
My mind.
I want you to blow my mind.
I'll make out with you. You make out with me.
Everybody,
I'm going to dump on that guy's porch.
Orgy in the middle of the street.
Everywhere.
Nice.
Happy Happy New Year, and welcome into the Burning River Sportscast presented by Tappan Media and brought to you by Seaside Events as the official cruise event provider of the Cleveland Browns and organizer of the Browns Fan Cruise. I'm Kenny Thunder, elated as can be, joined by future Cyborg and the Sultan of the Seas, Red Hot Ronnie Jams. On the board today, the original fairy, the Big Bone Man. Bone, how's the field have started such a fast-growing international movement that has people communicating in animal noises and going number 1 and 2 in litter boxes around the world?
I honestly never thought it would come on. I did it just to get my wife.
Wow.
It was just an inside joke?
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice. Back to Red Hot. 2 questions. On this episode of the Burning River Sportscast, who can our fans look forward to us talking to this week?
Well, they can look forward to us talking to the Greater Cincinnati Browns backers.
Browns backers, nice. And number 2, where can all of our listeners find all of the Burning River Sportscast exclusive interviews with Browns backers and former Cleveland Browns players all season long in preparation for what is going to be the year's most salacious sale put on by Seaside Events as the official cruise event provider of the Cleveland Browns, yes, the Cleveland Browns Fan Cruise.
They can find our podcast wherever they get their podcasts. I'm talking Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Podcast Castro, Good Pods, and so many more. And don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, the only place that you can find our video podcast and the video version of all of these interviews we're doing. And check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Our handle for all of those, including YouTube, is at Burning River Sportscast. And we are on X, the artist formerly known as Twitter, as well, with the handle at Burning River Pod. While you're at it, check out our merch, www.thetappenmedia.com/shop. Click on show specific, click on our show. I got all kinds of stuff in the shop. Cruise line, chub line, cold weather gear, it's all there. Get it, buy it now. And we'll constantly be adding more. But the Browns are on a 4-game winning streak now. And this past Thursday, they officially did it.
I've done it, Jim.
I'm Jim. They clinched a playoff spot for just the 3rd time since the team returned in 1999. Woo! Joe Flacco was slinging it again, and the defense absolutely dominated in a game that was literally over by halftime, leaving no doubt about whether the Browns would make it in this year or not. And we'll talk about all that in the next 2 hours, give or take an hour. Usually this is a pretty long show. But today we've got the Week 17 recap of the beatdown that we put on the Jets.
Oh, yes.
An interview, like you mentioned, with the Greater Cincinnati Browns backers. We do not have an interview with the Browns alumni that'll be joining us on the Cleveland Browns Fan Cruise in March of 2024 in the second half of the show this week. We'll pick that up again as soon as we can nail down these last 2 interviews in the series. Schedules are crazy, man. It's hard to get some people.
It was the holidays.
Yeah, it's been wild. We don't fault anybody for that, but we will get those last 2 and we'll get them out as quickly as we can. In the meantime, go back and catch a few of the old interviews. Lots of great stories to be heard. So
heck yes.
And then finally, we round out the show with the Week 18 preview for the game against the team from the city that my co-host hates the most, Cincinnati. So if you smell a delicious, crispy smell during the show, it's not your computer or cellular device overheating. It's a little bit of Burning River Sportscast shake
and bake.
Shake and bake.
Shake and bake.
Shake and bake.
Shake and bake.
Shake and bake. Now let's get things started with the Burning River News Story of the Week. All right, so the Burning River News Story of the Week this week. The XFL and the USFL have announced that this week that they will merge and form the, quote, Premier Spring Football League that will be known as the United Football League or the UFL. This is supposed to be a 50-50 split. Russ Brandon is going to be the president and CEO. Daryl Johnston to be the president of football operations. I think those are both, if I'm not mistaken, USFL guys. It does sound like The Rock and Danny Garcia are taking a back seat moving forward compared to what they were with the XFL. Although I would assume that they will keep The Rock as the face of the entire league with his social media following and all of that stuff.
Well, it sounds like it's a 5-part ownership group, so Danny Garcia and The Rock are still a part of that ownership group.
They're still a part of it, but it sounds like they were very out front and vocal about the XFL, and it seems like I said, I would assume they would still have The Rock do that, but it seems like Danny Garcia is kind of going to...
Just cashing checks.
Yeah, just snapping necks and cashing checks. But anyways, if you read between the lines here, it does sound like the league is positioning themselves to align with the NFL and form kind of a farm system for the league.
Well, yeah, I think it's a little bit of quid pro quo. I think both teams probably were cash poor by the time each season ended last year, in terms of the investment it took to bring both of them back after the pandemic. So, sounds like this is a way to to maintain sustainability for both leagues, as opposed to both leagues burning through cash quickly, trying to keep marketing and things abound. So, hopefully, it's a good thing for long term for the league.
Well, we're big proponents. We really like the XFL. I didn't really get into the USFL as much, but the XFL I thought was really good for football. So I'm hoping that this continues and they can continue to make strides and grow that league and really kind of form something that's there to stay.
What I like about it primarily is that it is a disruptor to the NCAA, because the NCAA has become so corrupt and power hungry that they have ruined programs over the course of the years. And to have now kind of this private equity brought up to have a spring football league that you've seen a number of guys from the XFL, from the USFL get signed to NFL rosters this year.
Especially the XFL. There's a lot of them.
If we could do away with the need to have to go to college in order to play professional football, I think it's a good thing, because there's just some people that are better athletes, right?
Well,
I mean, there was always
the
trade-off was you get a college education, but like to be honest, like not everybody needs to go to college. So if you're that good and you're was it Dwayne Haskins on the Here to Play school, like you just want to play football, like why shouldn't there be a route for you?
The other thing here is what I think is lost and kind of goes with what you're saying right now is the NCAA anymore with the NILs and things like that. I mean, they're basically a business entity of their own.
Right.
Not basically, they are a business entity of their own, and they're more or less a farm system, a farm league than they are, college programs putting kids through college. Like these guys transfer left and right, they do whatever. Which we can go down a big rabbit hole with this because I actually think NIL is great. Like these early years have been rough because they're trying to figure some things out. But I think it's great for college football itself because you have, I'll use Ohio State this year as an example, right? So you have Marvin Harrison, who has not beat Michigan, who has not competed for a national championship. The fact that he was even contemplating coming back when he's a top 3 pick speaks to what the NIL can do because he's like, I don't have to jump to the NFL to make my millions now because I can do that while I'm in college.
Right.
And I can do both. I can have the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, he could almost probably make more
I think that they said deal. Based off of what he's making or the estimated, because they don't have to disclose them, the estimation of what he's making in NIL deals would be more than a rookie contract.
Yeah, and again, it's disruptive to the NCAA, which is what I like. I think anytime we have a chance to put cash in people's pockets, like it's a good thing. It benefits everybody. So this is just one more way to do that, to give these guys a path forward to playing professional football. So it does sound like this thing is set to kick off still on March 30th. They're going to have the Arlington Renegades and the Birmingham Stallions. So that would have been the winner of the XFL and the winner of the USFL.
What an awesome way to kick the season off, too, to say, let's just put the champions against each other. And then I will say this. I want to point out one more thing. Another big thing coming out of this is that ESPN and Fox, you mentioned a five entity group that's investing in this, and ESPN and Fox are part of that group, which probably means huge TV rights deals and a chance for this thing to really be mainstreamed and give it the staying power that it needs to get going.
Agreed. So I think overall this is a good thing, just for those of us that want to watch football all year long.
Bone, thoughts?
I've never watched the XFL or USFL, so I listen to you guys talk about it. Like, I'm curious, like, to watch some games this year and just see if it does catch on. Like, I love the NFL way more than I do NCAA football. So it's like, I just to lock in enough people to make it successful. I'm skeptical. And just because of all the failings in the past, but
I think that's
I give it a shot.
What's hard is for people to really latch on, because when you latch on to an NFL team, you're latching on to a city, a tradition, the colors and the mascot and the history and even the players themselves. Like, I mean, each one of us could rattle off a bunch of personal details about probably 90% of the Browns roster. Oh, like Wyatt Teller wrestles alligators. Like, there's all kinds. Like, those are the things that you know about those players. And
Myles Garrett has a big Halloween party in a quarterback graveyard.
Like you're having to learn those things about anybody that's in this new football league.
I will say this: if they're able to somehow tie a team to a team like the Browns, you know how like the Indian or the Guardians have the Rubber Ducks. Like, I'm interested in the Rubber Ducks because they're local to us, obviously, but it's also tied to our baseball team.
Well, yeah,
so.
if you could grow this thing to where
me,
like 20 teams and you had a local farm system where you were like, let's go down to Youngstown or wherever it is and like watch the minor league Browns game.
To me, that's what this is, what they're starting to position themselves as being. They're like, our league's big enough that we can support this many teams and be able to give each team, or you combine two teams or whatever to make one farm team for those NFL teams. I think it's getting there. I think the other thing that's hard, just to your point, you said, Bone, you said you've never watched USFL or the XFL. I think it is a little bit difficult because we're all NFL fans here, right? Like, we love the NFL. That's obviously the premier football league in the world. So it's the top talent, the top tier everything. You got to understand when you go into watching an XFL game and a USFL game, the talent level isn't going to be quite the same as the NFL. But you can still have a lot of fun watching the game.
But it's a lot like college.
It's when you watch
Ohio State play Akron, like
no, it's probably about the same level of like the big time college. It's probably a little bit better than the big time college football leagues. College football teams.
The other thing, I don't want to belabor this forever, but the other thing that is nice about, I think, having a spring football league is you now have this kind of middle ground that's not college that we've seen guys like A.J. McCarron go back. They left the NFL to go back to play in the USFL or the XFL and have success there.
His story is so good, too, because he's like, I just want my sons to see me play football. So
it's like he wasn't going to have the chance at the NFL as a starter, but he could go there and start because he was the top-tier talent. And they had a great season out there in St. Louis or wherever he was. But it's just like you kind of have this linear progression of you go to college and then you go to the NFL. Well, for some of those guys that go to the NFL and maybe aren't quite ready or don't catch on with that first team, now you have kind of this second
avenue to build yourself up.
Like, used to only be Canadian football. Like, now you can kind of go back. You can say, okay,
and they got stupid rules.
Maybe I can reinvent myself in the XFL and then get a contract somewhere else.
Yeah, I agree.
USFL, UFL, whatever the hell it's called.
The CFL has stupid rules. So
yeah.
So
it's cold there.
Yeah, it's cold. So potentially big news.
Yeah, I think it's big news.
Yeah, so
we'll see how this season goes.
But that'll take us to the Week 17 recap. All right, so the Cleveland Browns beat the shit out of the Jets this week.
Hell yes.
So you guys, listen, I have a theory.
Okay.
You want to know what I think happened here?
Let's hear it.
I think Zach Wilson came to town. He's like, I'm hunting for MILFs. Right? Well, what happened was while he was out there looking for his MILFs, he accidentally hit on Joe Flacco's wife.
Oh, bad move.
She's about the same age as some of these younger players' moms.
She's nice looking.
Yeah, and she is nice looking. So I think that's what happened is Zach Wilson rolled up on Joe Flacco's wife, and Joe Flacco did not like that.
And she is a mom.
And he said, I'm going to throw for 300 yards in the first half. Almost. In any event, the Browns dominated. 37-20 was the final on this one. As I mentioned before, this thing was over by halftime, and a good thing it was because nobody showed up in the second half. But we'll start with our opponents this week, the New York Jets. On offense, Trevor Siemian, Zach Wilson didn't play. He was just looking for MILFs because he had nothing to do this week.
He was busy.
But Trevor Siemian was 32 of 45 for 261 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 4 rushes for 13 yards, and completely stifled by the Browns defense all day.
I would say that Trevor, for being put in that situation to play a tough defense, played as well as Trevor Siemian could play.
I agree. I mean,
he wasn't great. I'm just saying, I think he put forth professional effort and didn't embarrass himself.
I agree. He had more yards than most quarterbacks have had on the Browns team this season, but I think more of that has to do with they threw the ball 45 times.
Well, yeah. I mean,
they had to. They were down the entire game.
A lot.
But yeah, I mean, I would say it was respectable is what I would call it. But yeah, so next up for the Jets, Breece Hall, 13 carries for 84 yards, 9 catches for 42 yards and a touchdown. I'm going to say this. I'm sure a lot of people realized how good Breece Hall is in this game, because before this I was like, it's Breece Hall, is whatever. He looked really good throughout this game, I thought.
Yeah, I wasn't sure because he tore his ACL last year. And so I wasn't sure how he would come back this year. He looks really good.
He looked fantastic.
Really,
he was
really
explosive. Good. Like when he touched the ball, I was a little bit nervous every time. I was like, what's this guy going to do?
Yeah, he's a special player. I think he's one of those guys you're going to you continue to hear his name for the next 5-10 years.
Yeah. Next up for the Jets, Garrett Wilson, former Ohio State receiver, 5 receptions for 50 yards. And then rounding things out for them, Tyler Conklin, 5 receptions for 45 yards. So their offense didn't really have a whole heck of a lot going on. I would say Breece Hall by far was the standout for their offense. And then on the defensive side for them, 1 sack, 3 turnovers forced, 1 interception, and 2 fumble recoveries. So I mean, everybody kind of forces turnovers out of the Browns. That's not really a new thing this year, but
yeah, we love to just hand the ball over.
Yeah, it's a thing. And then on special teams, Greg Zerline, 2 of 3 field goals, 2 of 2 extra points. So he was there.
Greg the leg.
Yeah, which will take us to the Cleveland Browns. We'll start with our offense. Joe Flacco, 19 of 29 for 309 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Most of that damage, as I said, coming in the first half, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. But Flacco was just balling out there again, man, especially in the first half. He's just slinging it.
Dude just keeps slinging it. Every week, you think, he probably won't throw for 300 yards again, and then he does.
I'll say it's pretty impressive that this week he did it on 29 throws instead of 45, which he's been getting the last few weeks.
Agreed. Yeah, he was much more efficient in this game. He just looks more and more comfortable every week.
Yeah.
And obviously we'll talk about matchup coming up this week, but they're going to have some time off. So
yes.
I'm anxious to see when this team comes back after.
Joe Flacco probably needs it.
He's
like 40 years old. So.
Sure. After a couple of weeks off where he's not going to rush into a game plan, I'm interested to see what kind of wrinkles they can add. But I expect him to look even sharper when they hit the postseason.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to say is this week, like all the yards after the catch, I think like he's got some really good rapport because in previous weeks he's getting the ball to his guys, but they were getting tackled. I felt like after they caught it. I mean, there was some touch on the ball this week.
Like it was Joe Flacco, like I'm going to hit a guy in a window,
exactly,
and just pinpoint this pass,
he was just
and they get hit as soon as
leaving
they get
his
it.
dudes open just to run down the field.
But now it was better, yeah.
Yeah,
I agree.
And I think you hear that in the press conferences and things during the week and after the game. I think he's said almost as much that it's really easy to play the position when you have great receivers catching the ball and making things happen after the catch.
I think the biggest thing he does is, unlike some of the other quarterbacks that have played for us this season, he doesn't. Force is not a good word. It's that he sees the entire field, so he just takes what the defense gives him. He's like, whatever. If you're going to leave Njoku open and give him 30 yards to run, sure, I'll pass him the ball.
And he's so accurate that he'll throw into your natural turn to start running a field.
Yeah.
The guys aren't struggling to catch balls that are behind them, above them, below them. They're in stride on their route, and they can carry that momentum straight through the catch.
Well, and Jerome Ford's the next guy we're going to talk about, and I'll get to him in just a second. But the perfect example of that was the one pass where he scrambled and found Jerome Ford for the touchdown.
It was amazing.
It looked like he.
That's not even a play that you think Joe Flacco has in him.
No. Also, he got punched in the face on that play, and they didn't even call the roughing the passer. But anyways, that's a perfect example of what you're talking about in their natural turn, because it looked like he threw it behind Jerome Ford, but I'm sure he did it on purpose because Jerome Ford was getting to the sideline and he was going to have to stop anyways.
Yep.
So he planted that foot, and the way that he turned opened everything up for the touchdown.
Yep.
If he would have turned the opposite way, he would have just ran out of bounds.
Yeah.
So it is pretty awesome to watch. His accuracy is next level for sure. Dare I say elite.
So elite.
Yeah.
He's the most elite quarterback I've ever seen in Cleveland. I'll say one more thing about Flacco, and I texted you guys this after the game, which I love the fact that Flacco has come in here and understands the situation. He's not trying to blow smoke up anybody's asses.
No.
We know that, he's going to retire a Raven, and, that's who he made his career with. He's not here to say, dog pound or, trying to be fake or phony about any of this. He's happy to have the opportunity to play, happy to have the opportunity to lead a team.
Happy to be embraced by the city.
He's acknowledged the city has embraced him, which is great, but like he hasn't been fake about it to where it's like, I just always wanted to play in the dog pound.
Yeah.
A lot of guys come here and that's the first thing they say is, dog pound. Like Flacco has just been so real and genuine through this whole experience that it just makes me like him even more.
Well, and I know when we talked, you said he's still going to retire. His legacy's in Baltimore. And I said, well, he's gonna sign a 1-day deal and retire with the Browns after he takes us to the Super Bowl, wins the Super Bowl, wins Super Bowl MVP, and we put a statue of him out front.
I mean, maybe because we're going to treat him better than Baltimore ever would.
If we get him a statue before Baltimore gets him a statue, he's definitely retiring.
Truthfully,
is he going to be the first player to play for the Cleveland Browns that we give him a statue while he's still playing?
I'm ready for it. Erect it right now.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, Baltimore did force him out, so I guess things could end on a happier note here.
See, I'm just saying.
Joe Flacco moves his whole family to Cleveland.
I'm just saying. Let's make it happen. But next up for the Browns, we'll go to their running backs. Jerome Ford, 12 carries for 64 yards, 2 receptions for 57 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Look, I'm going to say this. It's clear to me, I mean, he had a better day rushing. I know there was a couple plays. He had some chunk plays in this one that kind of made his rushing yardage and yards per carry look a lot better than it actually was. I think that Jerome Ford, I've been saying all year, I don't think he's the number one back that the Browns think he's going to be eventually. However, I do think he's very valuable as a pass catcher out of the backfield or even as like a slot guy at this point.
Sure, his value is when he's in space. So
yeah, if we keep slinging it like we are right now,
he's a shifty runner. That said, like he had a better day on the ground.
Yeah.
I mean, he really only had these numbers in the half. I think he finished the first half with 58 yards.
Almost everybody on the Browns had their numbers in a half.
So if he finished with 6 more yards at the end of the game, but this team just didn't need to really play in the second half.
Yeah. But I would say so. My point being with him and his value as a pass catcher is, you hear them talk every week about how some of these passing plays, these short passing plays or these swing passing plays are more of an extension of the run game. I think that's what we have is we're not going to have a good running game the rest of the season. We're just not. We don't have the personnel to do it in the backfield. And I think that you run a lot of those plays to do the extension of the run game and get Joe Flacco up over 300 yards every game.
I do think that with Flacco over 300 yards during the game, if you can put a running game together like this one and this was the best running game.
Where it was just solid. They at least had over 100 yards.
Yeah, I mean, between the three backs, you have over 100 yards rushing. That's enough to get you wins in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Because you could chew clock a little when you needed to. Yeah. And it absolutely keeps them honest because they were doing just enough on the ground that they had to respect that running game.
Yep. And so moving on with their running backs, Kareem Hunt, 10 carries, 31 yards, and a touchdown. And then Pierre Strong, 4 carries for 29 yards. Again,
did put the ball on the ground, though.
He did put the ball on the ground, which him and Njoku both. But
he was getting carries until then.
Like the Browns always seem to do, they overcame both of them. But yeah, so like you said, I mean, the big thing here, the big takeaway here is that the running game actually showed up in this one, which has been lacking since. And
we've been calling for Pierre Strong to get more carries all year long, and he continues to look fast when he has the ball in his hands.
Yeah, I'm hoping that they don't hold that fumble against him too much, and he's able to continue to get carries next week.
He hasn't had that many opportunities, so
yep. But that'll take us to the wide receivers here. And as always, I include David Njoku in the wide receivers. I know he's a tight end, but I mean, he looks and plays like a wide receiver, a really big wide receiver. So, but he was the leading receiver again in this one, 6 receptions for 134 yards. And we'll get back to David Njoku. I'm not going to talk about him too much here because we're going to talk a little bit more about him here shortly. You guys have anything you want to say before we move on?
Just that he continues to be a bright spot for this offense. Obviously, I think the Amari Cooper news was a little bit of a shock to everyone that he wasn't going to play this week.
Yeah.
So David Njoku, as needed to, stepped up and kind of carried the load this week, and just goes to show again. We've been talking about is he elite? What class is he in as a tight end all year? That I think he's officially in that category as an elite pass catcher in the league.
I mean, with Joe Flacco as a quarterback, he is.
Sure,
that's for sure.
Sure.
Bone, you got anything to say about Njoku?
Yeah, he looked great. I mean, obviously, And his yards after the catch were just unbelievable. He just looks like a giant out there. We say it like every week, but he's just huge.
It is funny. He stands next to like middle linebackers and stuff, and he still just towers over them. I'm like, that's insane. Next up here, though, Elijah Moore, 5 receptions for 61 yards and a touchdown before he had that terrible concussion. Everybody did clearly a concussion. He was knocked out. He had somewhat of a semi-seizure triggered on the field. Just a hard thing to watch.
Yeah, never good.
Hopefully, it's not as severe as it looked. Because concussions are weird. Sometimes they're actually not that bad, and they look really, really bad.
I saw one report this week that the doctor said he should retire after that, and I was like,
but
like an overreaction. But
to me, it is. Let's talk about that for a second, actually, because every single time there's like a head injury in the NFL, you have these independent neurologists come out and they're like, they need to retire right now, and it's like, dude, you're just writing this thing up and making this story in this video for clicks. Like you actually. You're not, while you may be an independent neurologist and know a lot more about the human brain than I do, there's a reason why like the NFL doctors and some of these other people that see these injuries specifically with sports time after time aren't like, you should retire right away.
And I think like we've talked about this with some of the players we've had this year. Like we talked to John Greco about it, and he said like, look, you're getting paid a lot of money to be a professional athlete, and there's an assumed risk that comes along with that. The way that we treat these athletes sometimes is amazing to me. And I understand it because of the business and the investment involved, but like we don't coddle firemen or police officers or soldiers the same way. Yeah. Like you get a head injury, we just throw you right back out there because we need somebody to patrol the streets. We need somebody to go on secret missions and recover hostages. Like you don't get to just sit out because you had a head injury.
It is crazy too because like the past players, they all seem to be on the same page too. For I would say at least 90% of them. Everybody we've talked to that this has come up. Gary Barnage was another one. It was just like, yeah, I mean that's what happens.
Yeah, and I think so. Like to their point, and to guys that have made it an issue, it's more to do about like the league's inability to provide access to healthcare for players afterwards, and it is so much.
Which
to them
again, same conversation with Gary continues to be an issue. Is that nobody gets help after they retire from the NFL? So.
Right. So it's like those are two separate things, but it's just like these neurologists that come out every time somebody gets a concussion. It's just like. Do you watch MMA or boxing the same way? Like, how many dudes got punched in the face by Mike Tyson?
Right?
Like that was the one.
In UFC, how many times do you see a guy have, like, again, the same, like, seizure,
a little twitch afterwards,
twitching afterwards, and everybody's just like, oh, look at it, like they cheer for it. Right. They're like, he'll be fine. He'll be back to play again or fight again in a few months. Like, no big deal.
Yeah, I don't know. It baffles me the way that we look at head injuries in this sport. Sometimes.
And we're not saying they're not a big deal. They are a big deal, but they're just like this. It really irks me when you get these independent neurologists who just because they're head doctors or brain doctors that they think that I'm going to go on here and make this video for all these clicks and people are going to believe me that this guy should retire right now.
The truth is like probably nobody should play football.
Right, yeah. If you want to boil this whole thing down, like everybody should retire because football's not a safe game.
It's a dangerous game.
At any given time you can be knocked out.
A quarter of our team is on the injury reserve.
Yeah. Anyways, I digress. Let's move on to the defense.
Real quick, I will say it was disappointing that Elijah went down at that point because he was actually having a really good game.
That's kind of when it seemed to change as well. The offense came to a standstill after he went down.
He had a bunch of momentum going, and I know Joe kind of touched on this after the game, was that he kind of felt like Elijah wanted to be more a part of the offense last week when Amari was getting all the looks and all the catches, and he could like feel like Elijah was like he wanted a piece of that, and so like he had some momentum going in this game, and then obviously the head injury. Yeah. But
hopefully he's okay though, and is able to make a quick recovery and be back for the playoffs because I know his time with the Jets he didn't get to really do that. So,
but at least he did get a touchdown on the Jets.
He did. Yeah. Yep. But again, let's go to the defense here. Defense looked good in this one, especially in the second half, which, I mean, I will be honest, both teams made some adjustments at halftime, really tightened up, and this was one of the most boring second halves of football I've ever seen in my entire life.
It was terrible. When Stefanski came out of the locker room, he says, 0-0, new half for us. And I was like, I like that mentality. Like, I'm hoping something's going to happen here. But it just ended up being the most boring half of football.
Yeah, if that's what the mentality was, it didn't get through the players. Because if in the second half you had a 3-3 tie, and it was just terrible. Like, nobody could get anything going. But anyways, the defense had 2 sacks, 2 turnovers forced. Myles Garrett finally got a holding call, and the crowd went absolutely bonkers when they called it. So it was that exasperated, just like, oh, thank God they finally did it. And he only got 1 though. I mean, he was held like 7 other times in the game that they showed, but he got 1. So we'll start with him, as we always do, on the defense. He did get 1 sack in this one, and like I said, he got that holding call. He does sit at 14 sacks this season. He did not become the 3rd player to have 90 sacks in their first 100 games. He finished his first 100 games with 88.5, so just shy.
Still good company to be in. I mean, you look at that list. That's Reggie White at 105, TJ Watt at 91.5, and then Miles there is 3rd all time in your first 100 games at 88.5 sacks, and then
we've talked about this.
JJ Watt after that 87.
We've talked about this. I don't care what people say about TJ Watt and thinking he's better than Myles Garrett. They're different styles. And to me, as far as like a team game, I would take Myles Garrett every day because he wins his matchup and opens things up for other players far more often than TJ Watt does.
Sure. And like I said, I mean, you're still 3rd all time. I mean, it's not.
I mean, let's be real. What is that? What does that come out to?
I mean, if I could be 3rd all time
3 sacks
in anything,
separated him,
I'd be pretty excited.
That'd be pretty cool. Pizza eating competition?
Yeah, I'd take that.
Yeah.
3rd all time, most pizza ever eaten. That would be awesome. I ate the 3rd most pizza ever.
That's pretty cool. But yeah, so next up here, Sione Takitaki. He got the start in this one because of the injuries, and he did not disappoint. 16 tackles in this one, one pass defensed. I mean, dude was everywhere.
He's a player that's come a long way this year.
Yeah.
He was kind of one of those tweeners, kind of like, is he good enough to be a starter? This year, he has really stepped up and played really, really well, I think, all year long.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bone, I know if anybody sees Bone right now, they probably don't understand that it's a real weird thing we got going here. Kenny used to be a receiver and a corner. Bone used to be a linebacker.
Now he's a furry.
It's real weird. But no, Bone, I mean, you were a linebacker, so you can appreciate his play. I mean, do you have anything to say about Takitaki in this one?
Yeah, I mean, he was everywhere. He was tough. Seemed to win at the point of attack. I don't know. It was at the end of the game when I saw the stat that he had 16 tackles. I was like, whoa. I read that it was like Joe Schobert, maybe like in 2016 is the last time a Browns player had 16 tackles in a game. So I just kind of speaks to what he did. So
yeah, it's a huge performance. I mean, those are the types of games that guys like Roquan Smith have. Like, you're like, you need that somebody to step up and be able to play that way.
And with the playoffs approaching, now's the time. So next up, JOK. He has been talking about players that have come a long way this year, and the second half of this season, he's looking like. I
think he's like graded out as
starting to go into like one of the like a league wide star on defense.
He's graded out, I think, as the 1st or 2nd in his position in the second half of the year. Yeah,
and so he had 11 tackles in this one, 2 tackles for loss, which was phenomenal. Again, he was everywhere. And then this one, I'm pretty excited about this. Ronnie Hickman, former Ohio State guy, got the start in this one because all of our safeties are hurt. And he had an interception return, 30 yards for a touchdown, which was awesome. And you could just see it on the defense, like everybody was so excited for him in this one.
Yeah, Ronnie was one of these.
He's got a great name, by the way.
Terrible. Was one of these guys that was a bubble guy during camp, and in the offseason wasn't going to make the original 53-man. Then got called up. So, great for him. I mean, he's had the opportunity to play due to injuries, and he has not disappointed. I feel like we talk about him a little bit every week, where he showed up in at least one big play that's changed the course of the game. So, good on him. Happy to see an Ohio State kid do well.
Yep. And the rest of the secondary, they looked okay in this one. They did get beat a few times. There was quite a few passes of 20 yards or more in this one. But, I mean, the Jets had to throw the ball the entire game, so it was bound to happen at least a few times.
And I felt like that defense played softer in the second half. They probably played a lot more zone than they normally do, where they're generally a man and a blitz team.
All they were doing was, I mean, let's be honest, even though they gave up some yards in the second half. The name of the game was just to not give up any points. Like you already had a big lead, just try and give up 0 points.
As long as we don't give up 25 points, we won't lose.
So I'd agree with you. I think they probably softened up a little bit, but then tightened up in like the red zone or like anytime things started to get over the 50 there. But special teams, Riley Patterson, our newly signed kicker, because our hero Dustin Hopkins is down with an injury right now. 1-for-1 field goals, 4-for-5 extra points. That's right. He missed an extra point. The dude is no Dustin Hopkins, but he did play fine in this one. So can't be disappointed.
Just happy that we had a guy that could kick the ball.
Yeah. It's better than not having a guy that could kick the ball. That's for sure.
Speaking of, I know we talked last week when both specialists went down about having an emergency guy. Did you see Odell Beckham kicking field goals before their game?
No, I did not. But
he was like spinning it like a top and kicking them from like the 20. Just
to let you guys know goals. I could do it. I mean, I don't even know if the Browns went in with an emergency guy this game, if they learned their lesson or not.
I mean, I think they were just hoping Riley Patterson didn't die.
Who did their punting?
Some guy named Matt Hawk.
Oh, Hawk.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
I didn't even write him down, but I mean, he did fine too. So
he kicked the ball anyway.
Yeah, we had guys that could kick the ball. So coaching in this one, listen, we kind of go through one by one every week and talk about the coaching. The Browns won again. Everybody's hurt. We're in the playoffs. So I just kind of have Stefanski, Schwartz, and Ventrone all lumped together and say they all did well in this one.
There's nothing.
It was a pretty dominant performance. So
glaring that stuck out in this game. This game was, again, you're missing a bunch of guys. You got backups playing that you signed this week at your kicker and punter.
Yep. I would say that I guess we should point out Ventrone a little bit in that one because 4-for-5 extra points.
Sure, you didn't have any breakdowns.
Pretty solid for a guy that just signed with the team this week.
Yeah. So, but look, at the end of the day, this was a game to clinch the playoffs.
Yeah.
They knew they came coming in that this Jets team could be a little bit squirrely, could exceed their potential and their ability at times, and they have a decent defense, more than decent. I mean, this is one of the top 10 defenses in the
top
NFL.
Three. As far as yards per game, it was number 3.
It's a good defense they played, and this team just came in and left absolutely no doubt.
This was the third best team in the NFL in yards per game, and Joe Flacco hung 296 on them in the first half. Yeah, so I mean that just speaks to how dominant it was. And then honestly, the game was. We already mentioned it, but the game was over at halftime. So all the win was out of everybody's sails, like including the Jets. Like they were like, "Well, we lost." The Browns were like, "Well, we won," and they just kind of coasted the second half. So
yeah, I mean, it was one of those. I think if the Jets were still playing,
they're out of the playoffs.
Playoff seeding, they might have.
No, they were out.
No, I'm saying if they were,
yeah,
we might have had more action in that second half. But I think they came out and got lambasted in the first half, and they were like, "We don't have anything to play for." Like 1, 2, 3, Cancun.
Yeah. And the Browns were like, we sealed our playoff spot, so
yeah, like let's start resting now.
Yeah,
we've got.
Even if we're not resting, let's at least start like taking it easy a little bit.
We could almost make this a 3-week break. I mean, the nice thing is because they played on Thursday, you kind of have that mini bye, and then you're going to play this week against the game. It doesn't matter; so you can rest your guys then, and then you have a whole week leading up to the playoffs.
It's the best situation for a Browns team that is historically unhealthy.
Yeah, absolutely.
But anyway, so overall on this one, total yards: New York Jets 360, Cleveland Browns 428. First downs, Jets 17, Browns 20. Time of possession, Jets 31-51, Browns 28-09. Penalties, Jets 12 for 74, Browns 4 for 26. And turnovers, Jets 2, Browns 3. A couple things here. We've mentioned multiple times how the first half was the exciting part and the second half was terrible, and he probably could have went to sleep. This was the first game in NFL history where two teams combined for 50-plus in the first half, and no one scored a touchdown in the second half of the game. So you're going in. We went into halftime, and I was like, God, this is gonna be a blast to watch the rest of the way.
I was like, Flacco's on pace for 600 yards.
I could not be further from the truth and what actually happened. It was terrible. And as you mentioned, Flacco had 200, and we both mentioned Flacco had 296 at halftime. And he finished with 309 yards. So he threw for 13 yards in the second half, which that part's not good. But again, I think
the play calling changed quite a bit. I mean, they ran the ball.
I think we were just really
not
conservative.
Effectively a little bit more. So
But I mentioned the fact that he threw for 309 yards in this one because he is now the only Browns player to ever throw for 300-plus yards in 4 straight games.
He's the best quarterback in Browns history.
In the legend of Cleveland Browns quarterback Joe Flacco continues to grow.
The greatest of all time.
Every week, something else happens where you're like, holy shit, like, what is going on here in Cleveland?
He is
Breaks another record.
Yeah, it's insane. It is
in 5 games played.
It's absolutely insane.
I saw he's 71 or 72 yards from breaking Johnny Manziel's career yards record with the Browns, which puts him like 30th all time on like the Browns passing list.
I thought he did it in this game. I thought I saw a tweet that he did it in this game.
He's still 70 yards away, but Manziel immediately tweeted back like some records are meant to be broken.
Yeah. I did see the response. There was also from Schwartz, Anthony Schwartz, your old pal. It said there was a tweet that gave like a series of events, and it said basically the tweet said Anthony Schwartz drops a pass on whatever down to cost them the game, leads to this, leads to this, leads to this, leads to Flacco being the quarterback of the Browns go to the playoffs. And Anthony Schwartz retweeted it and said, "Don't say I didn't do anything for you, Cleveland." So
at least he knows he sucks.
Yeah, a couple of funny tweets from some terrible ex-Browns players this week.
I will say this. I know we don't have this as like a note or anything, but I want to talk about this now because it fits in the segment. Amazon's coverage of the NFL, I think, is really good.
Oh, it's really good. You know what drove me nuts in this one, though, before you go any further? Did anybody else's, because I had great internet connection, so I know it wasn't my internet connection, but the words kept starting to not match up on the broadcast with the mouths of
I did not have that particular issue.
I had to restart it like 3 times, and it might have just been the receiver I was using. We haven't hooked up the Fire Sticks yet, middle of a move, all that stuff. So the only receiver I could find was this might be a Verizon problem. It was Verizon has like a streaming device, and we used that because it was the only one I could find.
Yeah, I didn't have
but anyways,
like pixelated.
It was driving me insane because I was like, after like 20 minutes, all of a sudden, like their mouths didn't match with what they were saying. It was like delayed by like a second, and I was like, I can't watch this.
Was the game still on locally? I looked, and I did.
It was supposed to be. I didn't look once I turned it on, but it was supposed to be. I know there was a whole dust up about it because it wasn't on the channel guide.
Yeah. It wasn't on the channel guide, but it was on.
Okay, it was still supposed to be carried. But just in general, Amazon's presentation of these games, I think, is done really well. I think they have a really good cast and crew to pregame and postgame these things. I think they offer good insight. So I just think they've caught a lot of flack this year because the matchups weren't always great. But I think they do a really good job with coverage. And I think one of the interesting things is when this switched over last year and Amazon did this, and we talked about like the very first game that Amazon did, some of the cool things that they can do with technology because it's streaming and because Amazon is such a tech giant. And thinking about like the future of the game and what this looks like, I was really disappointed because what I noticed is what they've done with it, and we should have probably seen this coming, was the first technological challenge that they solved for was how do we create more immersive advertising. Yeah. Every commercial now comes with click here to learn more. Click here to have Amazon send you an email about the deals at Valvoline. Click here to learn more about this new series on CBS.
How do you make the most possible money?
Well, and so that's what I'm saying. Like, we should have probably seen that coming because we were all excited last year when it started about like the cool things that they were doing with like statistics and the way they would pop up on your screen. Like you could like see fantasy stuff. Like, and there was some of that because they had like the little red circle going where they were doing the AI on who's in the box and who's maybe not supposed to be there for quarterbacks. So like, I think there's more of that coming, but it was just kind of like very consumerist and very funny to me that like that's the
commercials
first place
was the first thing we did. Yeah.
Let's help out all these advertisers to give you a more immersive way to like, oh, you know what? I do want a Toyota RAV4. Let me click on that buy one right now online.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I would say the things that we're saying we want is going to come a lot more when Amazon gets more into the fantasy football or like sports betting type side of things. Like, true. I know they're not in that really right now, but I think that's for sure coming. Like just like you have the ESPN platform for fantasy football or Yahoo or whatever you use, I think very soon, if not next year, you're going to get the Amazon platform for fantasy football, and I bet it's going to be fucking dope.
Yeah, I would love that. I mean, there's still good things about it. Like, I like the fact that, like, if you were to, like, go to the bathroom and miss a play, like, it shows you on the commercial break, like, hey, click here and you can watch this touchdown
The rapid
again.
replay or whatever they call it. Yeah.
And they do have their own separate game cast of, like, the more in-depth, what do they call it, next-gen stats and all that. So, like, they have that kind of as, like, a separate piece. But I just think, like, the way streaming is today, whether it's YouTube and Amazon, I think it's just going to change the entire way we view this game because of all the different things you can do just with the controller on your hand versus having to watch it on cable. So, very cool. I think they do a good job. I was a little pissed at the fact that, like, the biggest thing that they've done so far is make advertising more accessible, but I do think some of those other cool features that we talked about.
You guys got the email this week, right? Talking about them adding advertising to the shows now, and you can pay $3 a month to eliminate that as part of the streaming. That just
money
happened this
over
week.
money over money over money.
Just happened.
See, we're gonna introduce these immersive ads that we make money off of, and then we'll make you pay money to not have the immersive ads that we make money off.
They put it so delicately. They're like, "Oh, your shows will still be there, but we're just going to be doing small advertising. And if you want, you can pay $2.99 a month to not have this."
And you know what? Like, most of the time, I do it. Like, I hate. We rented a couple movies on, like, the free apps, but you have, like, 8 different stops, and the stops for commercials are, like, 8 minutes long, and I'm like, Jesus, man. Like, that's not even, that's longer than cable. All of a sudden, my 2-hour movie is a 3-hour movie because your stupid ads. Like, I'll just pay $3 for it.
Yeah. But anyways, we are not sponsored by Amazon in any way whatsoever.
No.
So we're going to move on.
I think they are on the right track, and I think that they do a nice presentation of the game right now.
Fair. So another Browns
and I
news.
do think Al Michaels is starting to lose it a little bit because he's like, I think he's just like, what's going on anymore? I mean, they make jokes about, like, betting lines and stuff, and he's just like, halftime, some people are real happy, and they dance around it.
Herb Street's keeping him in line, just like
he's like
keeping it going.
Don't go there, Al.
But anyways, in other Browns news here, as mentioned before, the Browns are in the playoffs. It was determined.
Baby.
Hell yes. It was determined on Sunday due to wins and losses of other teams that the Browns have clinched the 5th seed. With the fact that their seeding can't change being known, the Browns plan to rest their starters for Week 18 against the Bengals. I would assume the Bengals are probably going to rest their starters as well to some extent because they're out of the playoffs. And with this, the Browns are the first team to start 4 quarterbacks in the same season and make the playoffs. So pretty cool. And then Dustin Hopkins will presumably end his season with 123 points scored for the Browns. We've mentioned this before. We've been tracking it for quite a few weeks now. Single-season franchise record for a kicker was previously 120 by Phil Dawson in 2007. So as we've talked about, D-Hop is your new franchise record holder for points in a season by a kicker. The single-season franchise record for any player is 126 by Jim Brown in 1965. So how fitting... I mean, just because it's the Browns, and Jim Brown is the greatest Brown of all time and one of the best football players of all time, that an injury forced D-Hop out, and most likely, I mean, unless they let him suit up and go for the record this week, which I don't think they will, playoffs, bigger picture, all that stuff, Jim Brown's going to get to hold his record, and his name's still going to be atop the record books as most points in the season.
I kind of said that last week. Like, I'm not mad that Jim Brown gets to keep his name in the record books there. I think it's kind of cool. I mean, the longer that Jim Brown's name stays on top of those lists, the longer that we have to keep talking about Jim Brown, which I think is a good thing. Yeah,
absolutely. And so, regardless, though, fantastic season, a career season for Cleveland kicker and Bone Man's all-time favorite Cleveland Brown, Dustin Hopkins.
I will say
all time.
I will say too. You mentioned just the first team that's ever had 4 quarterbacks start in the same season, make the playoffs. Also, out of all the 10-win-plus teams in the NFL this year, they're the only one that has started multiple quarterbacks at all. All the other teams that have won 10 games have only played their starter.
Just speaks to how good this team is as a whole.
Well, and just how good a coaching job.
This is the team of destiny. Yeah, we'll get back to that. But that'll lead us to the Burning River Sportscast Dog of the Week, baby.
Doesn't matter, man. You got to play tough people in the National Football League. You got to be ready, and we got to be the dogs that we are every time we step on there on Sunday and be ready to attack and don't stop until we're in that locker room.
All right, so this week's Burning River Sportscast Dog of the Week is David Njoku. 6 receptions, 134 yards. Came out and set the tone early in this one. Most of his damage was done in the first quarter. Helped the Browns race out to a quick lead that they never looked back from. He caught 4 passes for 113 yards in that first quarter, and it was the most receiving yards by a tight end in the first quarter since at least 1991 when they started doing quarter-by-quarter splits. So that best the previous record of 106 yards held by Travis Kelce, who accomplished his total on Christmas Day in 2016. And so to Kenny's point earlier in the show, we talk about him being borderline elite. Well, guess what? He just passed the most elite tight end of all time for the most yards in the first quarter.
Dude's elite.
This is wild. Just every time he caught a pass in the first quarter and then had 40 yards after the catch, I was like, what is happening right now?
I think your point, though, is pretty succinct, though. He's elite when Joe Flacco was the quarterback.
Yeah.
Because before Joe Flacco was
Joe
the quarterback,
Flacco has the vision. He sees the whole field. So he's like, you're gonna leave David Njoku open underneath. I'm gonna throw it to him, and he's gonna run it for 30 yards after the catch.
Before Joe Flacco was the quarterback, he was kind of borderline. So I'm wondering, if Deshaun Watson comes back next year and is our quarterback, is David Njoku still as effective?
Probably not.
Or
He
is
can't.
he just not getting
Here's
the
the deal.
looks?
Here's the deal. I'm on board. You can't spell elite without Joe Flacco.
Joe Flacco is the most elite.
And he makes David Njoku elite as well. So, this was unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the most ridiculous first quarter I've ever seen. I mean, it was the most ridiculous first quarter of all time by a tight end. So
poor girl's name that interviewed him after the game, and she was like, you pretty much had about as good a first quarter as you could possibly have, right? And he was like, yeah. She was like, literally like, no one's ever done it. He was like, okay, it was good. He's like, it could have been better. But she's like, no one's ever done it.
She's like, you caught 4 of 4 passes for 113 yards. So
she's like, they're as good as it gets.
Even on his fumble, which I don't mean to bring it up during Dog of the Week, but C.J. Mosley, dude.
What a dick.
C.J. Mosley made a nice freaking play right there.
He punched it straight out, too.
And then he recovered it after that, so it was a badass play by a good, really good linebacker.
Sometimes a really good player makes a good play on another really good player. And it just happens. It can't be perfect. So, but yeah,
it was close.
So once again, the Burning River Sportscast Dog of the Week is David Njoku. Congratulations, David. And that'll take us to the division roundup. So the Ravens dominated the Dolphins this week, 56-19. Yeah, you heard that right, 56-19. And the only guy that was stupid enough to pick the Dolphins is me. So, feels bad. I was wrong in that one. You guys are both right. Next up here, the Steelers beat the Seahawks 30-23 and officially guarantee that Mike Tomlin once again finishes over 500. Dude does it again. This Steelers team is bad. And somehow
they are ass.
They're going to be above 500.
They're bad at a
season.
Bunch of positions.
They have a chance at 10 wins.
I mean, they're another
with this team.
We talked about the Browns being the only team with 4 quarterbacks. They've had 3.
3, yep.
So,
Speaks to Mike Tomlin and what he can do. So, again, Steelers fans, when you inevitably miss the playoffs but you're above 500, please fire Mike Tomlin.
And let's
do it.
Fire Mike
keep
Tomlin.
This in perspective. He's once again over 500 in his 17th season.
Yeah.
17.
Never finished under 500 in
17 years.
Yep.
With some of those with Ben Roethlisberger as washed up as he could be.
He's got Kenny Pickett as his main quarterback right now, which I will throw this in there. Kenny Pickett got cleared to play this week, and he is being benched for Mason Rudolph, so that's always good times.
I mean, Mason Rudolph was always the better quarterback.
Which is sad. But anyways, yeah, Mike Tomlin.
17 years.
So in case anyone was wondering, though, as far as who's picking these games and who's getting these right, Bone and I got this right, and Kenny was the only idiot that went against the Steelers.
I did pick them initially, and then I was like, I have to play the game. So.
Well, you still picked the Seahawks, and you lost. So Kenny was wrong. We were right. Feels bad. Next up, the Bengals lost to the Chiefs 25-17 and were officially eliminated from the playoffs. Once again, Bone and I, we were right in this. You were wrong. Feels bad. And the Browns beat the Jets easily, and everybody was right there. So for the AFC North, the standings right now through Week 17 are as follows. Baltimore, they've locked up the number 1 seed and have won the AFC North regular season at 13-3 right now with 1 game to go. Cleveland is at 11-5. Pittsburgh is at 9-7, and Cincinnati, who has been eliminated from the playoffs, is at 8-8. And so for King of the North, which we'll talk more about later, Bone he went 4-0 this week. In case anyone wasn't paying attention just now, he went 4-0 this week. He's at 32-22. I am at 30-24, and Kenny is done. he is officially going to be punished, and he is 25-29. Kenny, you want to save your retort for later when we do King of the North?
Yeah.
All right. So with that, let's take a quick trip around the NFL. All right. So Russell Wilson is out in Denver. Well, not officially, but basically. So that's right. Russell no longer tussles, Zach.
I can't defend him anymore.
Wilson has been benched for the final 2 games of the season, and the sides seem to be heading for a divorce. This comes after Wilson refused to waive his injury guarantee in his contract. The team wanted him to do this because they were out of the playoffs or on the verge of being out of the playoffs and didn't want to have to pay him if he got hurt. Russell actually said that they told him he needed to restructure his deal or he was being benched way back in November. So even before they were out of the playoffs, they told him to do this or he was going to get benched. And he said, fuck you, I want my money. And so here we are. Denver will presumably be eating all of the dead money here. And that is either going to be $85 million in dead cap if they cut him before June 1st. Or if after June 1st, that will be split over 2 seasons. So this whole thing has just been absolutely wild. And the Broncos proceeded to win with Jarrett Stidham at quarterback here.
Jarrett Stidham is an end-of-the-season rally guy because he's like he was with Oakland, I think, last year, and they did the same thing. Like at the end of the year, came for 2 or 3 games, and after David Carr. Maybe if Jarrett Stidham shows up on your team, if you're a starting quarterback, you should be scared.
Yeah,
because Derek Carr had the same thing last year, Russell Wilson this year, and he kind of comes in. He's like, I can win some games at the end of the year.
So what do you think about this Russell Wilson thing, though?
I'm surprised that this happened. That this happened at all because I can't imagine that Sean Payton comes back and into this situation and isn't sold 100% on Russell Wilson.
Like, I wonder what happened. There had to be something personal behind the scenes between him and Sean Payton.
Which is stuff we heard last year about, like, Russell not getting along with teammates and the coaching staff with Hackett there.
There's a lot of rumors out there that he's kind of a diva. He thinks, like, everything should be about him. Like, even down to, like, appearances for the team and things like that. Like, if somebody overshadows him, he won't do it. And
so there's some weird things going on there. I will say Russell did, in the games he played this year, threw for over 3,000 yards, 26 touchdowns, 8 picks. So it wasn't like he was absolute ass.
His numbers were good, but the offense as a whole was pretty stagnant. It was pretty terrible.
Yeah, never really reached their potential. Look, $85 million in dead cap is a lot. I don't know.
That's why I mean there has to be something personal going on because an NFL team does not eat $85 million. Like, it just doesn't happen. So, and I mean, it's either that or we're starting to see that shift where, I mean, we talk about Deshaun and all the things that could happen with Deshaun where teams are saying, it was just a bad deal and we're cutting our losses. And even if we have to eat a bunch of money, that's just what's happening.
Well, and I hope that some of these NFL GMs start to learn from some of this, right? This goes back to, like, quarterbacks need to stop.
Yeah, I was going to say, is this what turns it around?
Need to stop paying quarterbacks guaranteed contracts of $150 or $200 million because you never know when that talent is going to just run out. Like, with some of these guys, I mean,
I knew. I told you guys Russell was washed. I've been saying it for a long time, but nobody listens to me. Fuck me, right?
Well, but you're also were in the Deshaun Watson camp, and he hadn't played football in 2 years, so. You know, you were good with paying him $230 million, and he's looked worse than Russell has.
That's a fair assessment. I can't really fight back.
So I just think but I'm just surprised because Sean Payton went into this situation like
Why does my co-host have to be so sharp? I'm
the sharpest motherfucker alive.
Well,
Sean Payton is such a strategist and such a long-term thinker that it just baffles me that, like, if he was going to come to Denver, that he would have said, like, I want my choice of quarterback, like, figure this thing out, rearrange his contract, do something before he came there. But, like, this thing soured, and it soured quickly. And, hey, I don't like Denver, so F them.
Yeah, that's true.
F them all.
Denver.
Yeah. You got anything to say about your boy?
I don't like Denver either.
No,
but I will say this. I've been thinking about it. Russell next year, comes in, third string quarterback, two get hurt. He pulls a little Joe Flacco season and that
could be his role.
Takes the Raiders to the playoffs.
That could be his role, honestly. That's not a bad spot
like
if he sits on his couch all year and then he ends up playing. You don't think
he just takes his $85 million and retires or whatever?
Who needs a quarterback at the end of the year? Like when Aaron Rodgers ruptures his Achilles again? Who wants me? Yeah. All right. Let's ride.
Right play caller, right team, you never know.
Yeah, I'm with you. Let's ride. Anyways, next up here, we've talked all year about bad officiating, but what happened in the Lions game this week may be the most egregious thing that's happened yet. Basically, in case anyone didn't see this whole thing, what happened is Taylor Decker told the refs he was eligible, and Dan Skipper, another offensive lineman,
did not report.
Yeah, he did not report. He didn't report as eligible.
If you watch the video back, he ran by and slapped Decker on the ass. That was the extent of his
He was like, hey, what's up, buddy? Yeah. Like we're in this play together. So fast forward a little bit though, and the Lions converted the 2-point conversion to take the lead on a pass to Decker. However, after about 5 minutes of confusion,
the Lions thought they won the game. They were celebrating. The sideline was celebrating.
It was ridiculous.
It was like 20 seconds left in the game, right?
Yeah. It got called back because Decker was supposedly ineligible, and that wasn't even the penalty. The crew announced that Skipper was the eligible man, apparently, when this whole thing started. Even though Skipper never talked to any refs, and that's all video evidence, like he never said anything to the refs. Decker was over there having a conversation with them. Why would an offensive lineman have a conversation with a ref unless he was checking in as eligible? Like, it's all pretty crazy. And I think the penalty that got called was that Skipper was covered up. And of course he was covered up because he wasn't an eligible receiver, you idiots.
So they kind of said both. What they said in real time when this happened, they were like, well, 2 people can't report as eligible, and they were like, well, we didn't report 2, we only reported 1, and he was covered up anyway, so it was illegal touching. But it's very clear watching the video playback now that. Taylor Decker was talking to the referee. Yeah. I think Jared Goff was over there as well.
Jared Goff was over there?
And Skipper came by and kind of slapped him on the ass as they were done talking to the referee.
Jared Goff was reporting as an eligible receiver.
No, but he was over there talking with the official with him. So anyway, this whole thing happened, mass confusion. The NFL looks really bad here again. The NFL officiating looks really bad here again.
We'll get into that in a minute. I still have more to say about this crew. So this crew, in case anyone was wondering, is they were involved with more controversy earlier in the season, in Week 13 to be exact, when they didn't call a clear, like a blatant pass interference against the Green Bay Packers that cost Kansas City that game. So because of all this, Brad Allen, who's the head official of this group, him and his crew have been downgraded, is what it's called in the NFL, which is basically what that means is they are not allowed to work the postseason this year.
And in the postseason, it is worth noting that the crews that work in the postseason are mixed crews where they will take parts from everybody's crew. But as of right now, what they're saying is that none of this crew will be involved in any of the mixed crew games going forward in the playoffs.
Yeah, and so this is a really big story, especially at a time when people are starting to jump on the bandwagon and point fingers at the NFL as being fixed or scripted, and pointing out the fact that they're an entertainment organization and not really a sports entity, and all this stuff. I mean, this is a really bad look because it looks like there may be some validity to that they control games through the officiating.
And truthfully, some of the officiating is very subjective.
Yes.
Because everybody on the planet will admit that there's holding on every NFL play.
Yeah.
But it doesn't get called all the time because you can't call it all the time or they wouldn't play the game.
No.
So they're supposed to only call the ones that are really bad. But holding essentially happens on every play. So if it happens on every play, they're already making that choice whether or not they're calling it because of this or that. So we know that there's ticky-tack calls that go on. And I mean, who's it to say that they weren't slipped an extra, $500 before the game?
Yeah, you can downgrade
all
us
season long.
You can downgrade us, but we're going to get paid right now.
I mean, in a day and age where sports betting is now, massive.
Well, that's a whole other side to this conspiracy, right? Is the NFL is involved with DraftKings, with FanDuel, with all these sports betting entities. MGM, all of them that you could think of, they're involved with all of them. So they stand to make money off of sports betting.
Sure.
And so with that, like, why wouldn't you, if you're the NFL and you have the ability to do it, why wouldn't you influence the outcome of games to make it the best outcome for yourself?
And it's just one of those things where you just hate to have an official change the outcome of a game.
Yeah, that shouldn't happen ever.
To me, there just has to be a better way to go about officiating. The NFL is printing money.
Amazon does Thursday Night Football now. Maybe they could make the AI powered by Amazon's cloud, whatever thing.
Love it.
Yeah,
would love some AI officiating. I would love an AI officiating that wants a.
You have to be able to tweak it, right? Because you got to turn it down. Because you can't. If you have cameras doing it all in AI, they're going to catch there's holding on every NFL play.
Well, yeah, but the
AI
should be able to be tuned in to say holding that looks like this is called 20% of the time. Holding looks like this is called 90% of the time.
And we just crank it up a tiny bit.
A call here is good versus a call here is bad. Like it should be able to give you a yes/no.
We're starting to get deep into this thing because then who's controlling the AI?
Well, that's why you still need a manual operator or a team of operators that should be able to go and radio back to an official. Hey, the AI says 90% of the time is a good call. 10% of the time it's a good call. Like, which side do you want to be on? The one where everybody's be outraged because only 10% of the time it gets called, or like, do you want to be on the blatantly obvious this was a good call?
I don't know. Wild concepts, man.
But just in general, even without AI, I just don't know why there isn't a crew already. Just watch. If we can see it at home.
I thought that there is a crew. I thought that's what they do in New York.
There's like one guy in New York that watches these games and gets called every now and then. But like there should be a team of guys that watch from the booth, watch from the sideline and from the booth and from the TV broadcast that can all go, hey, is this call questionable? Can we call this in as the referees and say this is questionable? What do you guys think? Let them make the decision because they're watching the same game we're watching at home. Why can't we just spend the extra 15 seconds to get the goddamn call right?
Yeah. I mean, it's a good point.
It can't be that hard.
Well, you know what the problem is? The NFL doesn't. They don't make enough money to be able to pay that crew. So
yeah, right. They want to be part-time workers.
Yeah,
no union. And
part-time workers doing full-time jobs or some. I don't know. Anyways, next up here, the Miami Dolphins, as we mentioned, lost to the Baltimore Ravens 56-19 this week. As if that wasn't bad enough, Bradley Chubb went down in garbage time and is done for the year and most likely into next year with a torn ACL. What the fuck was Bradley Chubb doing in the game?
Is it officially torn ACL?
I believe so.
That's what I heard, yeah.
I mean, I saw him leave the field on a
I got it from my correspondent over here, Bone Man, so I blame him if I'm wrong.
I saw him leave the on a card. It didn't look good, but yeah, I mean, you can't. What is he doing out there in garbage time? I mean, when you're down
56-19 or whatever it was at the time, like you were still down by like 35 points.
I mean, if it was 39-19 and you're in the end of the third quarter or fourth quarter, like what are you doing? Why do you have one of your premier players out there when you're
not smart?
When you're about to still be in the playoffs,
not smart. So now Nick Chubb and his cousin Bradley Chubb are done for the season.
Feels bad.
Feels real bad.
But at least Nick Chubb will be back soon.
I don't think they're related at all. But anyways, I digress.
I thought they were cousins.
I think it's just like a rumor, and they were like, "Yeah, I don't know."
It's like the Metcalfs.
Yeah. Anyways, huge weekend of football coming up with tons of playoff implications. On the AFC side of things, Miami versus Buffalo for the division. It's going to be wild. The loser's probably going to get. Well, if Miami loses, they'll get a wild card. If Buffalo loses, they could be out of the playoffs, which is crazy to think that Buffalo might not make the playoffs this year.
It's crazy that Miami would lose the division after they've been so good all year.
But we've talked about this. I mean, they can't really beat good teams. They beat Dallas, but Dallas also can't beat good teams. So
true.
But then Dallas turned around and beat the Lions this week. So I don't really know what to make of all this.
And they beat Philly.
Yeah. But anyways, Houston versus Indy this weekend as well. And if Jacksonville loses their game, the winner of this game would be the winner of the division. Either way, this game is for sure for a wild card spot. So it's just some wild things going on in the AFC. And in the NFC, the Buccaneers win and they're in. If they lose, the winner of the Atlanta-New Orleans game would win that division. And if they lose, if the Buccaneers lose, then they're out of the playoffs completely unless both Seattle and Green Bay loses.
Yeah.
So
that could very well determine Baker Mayfield's
You literally, you could win the division or you could lose and potentially fall completely out of the playoffs, not even get a wild card spot.
Feels bad.
If New Orleans wins, they can get in as a wild card. Or if they win, and like I said, and the Buccaneers lose, they would win the division. So Green Bay wins and they're in with a wild card. And Seattle, if they win and Green Bay loses, they would be in with a wild card spot. So there are probably more scenarios. We didn't get into ties or anything like that. There's probably more that we're missing, but we don't really care that much because the Browns clinched the 5th seed. Let's fucking go. The Browns are in the playoffs. We literally are playing for nothing in week 18.
That's all that matters.
We're just watching football this week for fun.
That's right.
Hell yes.
Good time.
And so with that, that'll conclude our trip around the NFL. Kenny, Browns backers, you want to talk some?
Would love to.
All right. So something we started doing this year for our Browns is our Browns backers interview series. What we wanted to do was highlight Browns backers from around the country. We wanted to do that for several reasons. First of all, because these people are all diehard Browns fans. They love our Brownies regardless of the record. That part is the obvious part, right? They show up, rain or shine, no matter what, and root for the team. But what we also wanted to highlight, and it's something that most people don't really realize about the Browns backers, is the fact that they do a lot of good work around their respective communities. So with that, let's go ahead and get into the next interview in our series.
Powered by Riverside FM.
All right, guys. So this week for the Browns Backers interview series, we get to chat with Brian from the Greater Cincinnati Browns Backers. Brian, thanks for joining us. How are you today?
I am wonderful. Thanks for inviting me along. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. I know everybody's time is valuable, so thanks for taking a little bit of yours to join us and talk about the Browns here. But to get started here, tell us a little bit about your chapter down there.
So I am Brian Clifton. I'm the president of the Greater Cincinnati Browns Backers. I've been the president now for about 4 years. I took over for our president, Ann, and unfortunately she took over for our president, Joey, who passed away, who refounded the club back in 1999. It was a club in the mid-'80s, all the way up to 96 when they disbanded all the clubs. And then we got the chapter back in 1999. We were one of the first 10 chapters, I think, that was approved by the Cleveland Browns.
Nice. And so how many members are you guys up to right now, did you say?
We are at about 250 members. It fluctuates every year. Some years we've had over 300. Some years we have 250. I think with the success, we'll see a bigger turnout next year, which will be great. And
absolutely. And
then we always meet at Slats Pub in Blue Ash, Ohio, on the corner of Kenwood and Cooper. And we always meet there.
Nice. And I know Slats, your guys' logo, I believe, is like the skyline of Cincinnati, and Slats is kind of written there in the bottom right corner, if I'm not mistaken, right?
That is correct. Yeah. So I came up with that logo because we had a dog with brass knuckles, and it just didn't really represent the city. And that's one of the things I tell all these presidents and that when they're coming to me and going, what kind of ideal do I have? Because I really like your ideal. I'm like, you got to incorporate something with the city that you're in. So I took the city of Cincinnati's skyline, kind of boxed it around, moved some of the buildings around so they wouldn't copyright me or whatever else that they had to do. And then I turned the 471 Big Mac Bridge sideways and it made it look like a dog. So it has like two eyes in the mouth if you like really look at it closely. And then I colored it in the browns because we dominate this city always.
Nice.
Love it.
Yeah, and so I will let you know at this point that my astute co-host here really has some disdain for the city of Cincinnati. And so
it's playful disdain.
If anybody from your guys' group follows the show at all, just know that when we talk about Cincinnati and he talks about how he doesn't like anybody from Cincinnati, he means anybody except for you guys.
Not the Browns backers.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So
the thing with Cincinnati though is they're all fair weather fans. When they're winning, everybody's a fan. It's all Who Days. It's everything else. When they're losing, it's crickets down here. You don't hear anything. I ran into J.W. Johnson while I was at Joe Thomas's introduction. He was like, "What's it like being in hostile territory?" I was like, "It's only hostile when they're winning," and that's like few and far between. So I'm like, it's really not an issue down there.
it's probably pretty quiet this year, I would imagine.
It's really quiet this week, that's for sure.
Yeah. No, but so part of the reason that we're doing this series is obviously we want to talk to Browns fans all over the country and all over the world. But we also wanted to highlight some of the great things that the Browns backers do, mainly the community service and charity work that you guys are involved with. So what do you guys have going on as far as community service and charity work with your chapter?
Well, so 4 years ago, we used to do a thing called Member of the Year. And unfortunately, when our president passed away, we called it the McGregor Award. So that I reintroduced the Backer of the Year. So the Backer of the Year, the winner, gets to pick the charity that all of our 50-50 split the pots, raffles, stuff like that goes to. So this year, our winner picked a Wounded Warrior organization. So that's where at the end of the year, we'll tally up all the money. Next year, at the very first game, we'll have a representative come up to the game, come up to the club, receive the check, and then we'll announce the new winner. And then that person gets the chance to pick the new one. So we've donated to the Dragonfly Foundation here in Cincinnati. We've donated to an animal rescue kennel. We've donated to a lot of stuff. American Red Cross is the next one that's getting the check. Just stuff like that.
So if you're doing a season-long kind of raffle, those are probably pretty significant contributions, are they not?
Well, we do what's called a club party. So we pay for the alcohol and we pay for some food so we pay for beer and then we pay for the food. And then we have club parties and stuff. That's where most of the raffles come in. We do that 2 times a year, but we do 50-50 every time we're there.
Nice.
Got it.
Nice. And so, obviously the game is in Cincinnati this week. It doesn't really mean anything that Cincinnati's
it means
out of the
absolutely nothing.
Yeah. Cincinnati's out, the Browns are in, and their seeding can't change, obviously. So, with that being said, I'm sure you guys probably still have some sort of party going on down there. And we're all Browns fans, so I'm sure there's going to be quite a few people going to it.
Yep. So now that they finally gave us a date and time and decided this new flexing the schedule the last week really hurts Browns backers clubs because the very last party is like the last game of the year could be a big party. It could be stipulations behind it. But now it's like, okay, well, what are we playing for this week? So now I got to try to plan a party in 6 days for a backer bash that we do. So every game before the Browns Bengals game, we do what's called Cincinnati's Backer Bash. Last year, we had over 400 people show up to Copper and Flame. But this year, we are teaming up with the Short Vine Browns backers. So they're located on the UC campus real close to it. Seth's been really good to us during COVID years and stuff. It just seemed like a no-brainer to have it at their place. So their owner, Kelly, has been nice enough to let us be hosting there with them. So that will be going on Saturday, January the 6th from 4 p.m. to 7. It's just people that are getting into town. A lot of people like to meet the bus into Cincinnati also, meet the bus people, and then they go, where are we supposed to go after that? So it gives them an opportunity to hang out. We'll have raffles. We'll have split the pot there. The big raffle item that the Browns donated to us was Nick Chubb's signed mini helmet. So we'll be raffling that off. And then we'll have like drink specials. She made up an orange and brown shot for $3. So I'm like, I can do orange and brown shots all day. I have no idea. She won't tell me. She said it's a surprise. Sometimes it's good just to have a surprise, you know? But she said there are orange and brown shots for $3. So I'm like, that sounds good. I like that. And then they'll have like discounted Sam Adams in Great Lakes, because Great Lakes is the big brewery up in Cleveland. Sam Adams is the big brewery here in Cincinnati. So they've joined up to give us discounted on prices. They gave us a bunch of swag that we can hand out to people. The Browns have given me a bunch of swag to hand out to people. So it's going to be somewhat of a fun time, except for the game's going to be meaningless. So
hey, sometimes that's a good thing though, because everybody doesn't have to worry about catching the game. They could really let loose at your event.
True. No, that's true too. Yeah.
Well, and there's some celebration there too, because when's the last time the Browns have had a game late in December where it didn't matter?
It didn't matter at all. Well, it'd been really nice if Miami could have took care of business yesterday. That would have been really nice. Then we would have had something to be playing for this week. But in hindsight too, I guess it's really good because now it gives the starters almost 14 days of rest. That, they get a week off now that they can rest their bodies and stuff. Then they're going to go into practices for the playoffs. And now, whereas opposed to if we were playing this week, we're turning right back around and playing maybe Saturday night or Sunday or maybe Monday night to try to go have those starters that, we already have the majority of our rosters on injured reserve. The last thing we need to do is have another starter go out. So it's just smart to sit them all. Now we're going to have Jeff Driscoll like leading the charge of the Browns against his old team, the Bengals. So that's just comedy all in itself right there.
Yeah. No, and it's actually, all of this is a great segue to the football side of things. So let's actually back it up a little bit here, and let's start with the season so far. So we'll start first with the game this past week. How did you think they looked against the Jets?
Well, I was up there for it, so I went to the game. I drove up, tailgated with the Nats tailgaters, and then went to the game. It was electric. That was the most electric. I try to go to 2 games a year. That was the most electric and fun game I have ever been to since 1999 when we came back. That was an absolute, the atmosphere was insane. What they did with the laser light show and your cell phones, and that was amazing. It was just it was great. And then we jumped out in front of them real fast and just pretty much ended the game in the first quarter and said, we're done. This is how it's going to be. So that they wanted the playoffs. The playoffs were like right in their window and they wanted it. They were hungry for it. They got it quick. So even when the refs were coming up with new rules.
Oh yeah,
true. So when they did that, the light show, did they put instructions on the jumbotron for that? Like everybody turning your cell phone lights on, or how did I guess
they did that, and they let us know ahead of time, and you have to have the app, so it was on the app, and you got emails, so that you were pretty well rehearsed and informed of what you needed to do, and it seemed like everybody was really logged in because it seemed like everybody's camera was going off, just not like randoms here and there. So they did it in displays, they did it in like random bursts, and that was just really neat. And then at the third quarter, when they had that 12-year-old kid coming in with the introduction to Thunderstruck with all the lights strobing and everything, that was just insane. That was great. So they really did. So kudos to the Browns and the Corey and all them other people that are involved with it. That was absolutely amazing.
It was cool to see on TV as well.
It was fun to watch.
It was better live.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. No, and so we both just mentioned we watched it at home, and I will say this: so at home, after that first quarter, like you said, things really slowed down a little bit. It was a little boring to watch it on TV with the lack of offense on both sides. At the stadium, was it more of like we jumped out in front, now everybody parties the rest of the time?
The crowd was electric. Where I was sitting at, so I was sitting on the Myers end zone side of the stadium, and I was in the area where they started the Flacco chants all the time. So I was down there. Nice. I was up by where Chubb smashed the guitar. So I was way up a little bit more in that first section, 148. But I mean, we were still just chanting and being loud and saying playoffs and screaming and everything else. So the crowd was still being loud and entertaining and really into it, even though the game got boring there in the second and third quarter.
Well, and I'll say this, that came across on TV. My wife and I were watching, and she was like, why is it so loud? Is it like, she said, usually NFL games don't sound like this. And I said, you're right. Usually NFL games don't sound like this. So it was pretty evident on TV that crowd was really into things and just having a good time.
Now, did you stick around afterwards as the players were kind of making their rounds and doing laps around the stadium?
We did not, because I had some events happening in Cincinnati I had to get back to. So we just went ahead and bailed from the stadium. And then we went down to the pit and tried to get out of the pit and wasted another hour of our lives trying to get out of the pit.
Yeah.
So, and then
that's fantastic, though. I mean, like we said, the game was it was awesome to see, and I think one of the coolest things about this game was that, like you said, not only did we have a chance to clinch the playoffs, but they came out right away and said it's not a chance to clinch the playoffs. We're going to be in the playoffs, and everybody's going to know it.
I think one of the cool things that just happened at the end too was a few things, like one, Njoku going up to the crowd. So that little boy that he shook and said, we're going to the playoffs, really good friends of mine. I was just talking to him earlier and at the Nats tailgate and stuff. I know his mom's part of the Xenia Browns backers. Grandmother that took him is one of the officers of the Xenia Browns backers. So we're all like really tight and close with each other. So to see Njoku interact with him just brought like a smile to everybody's face. And then to watch him hop over the barricade and down somebody's beer, which I was like, I don't know if I would have done that, but I wish I would have known that.
I'm sure he's got a fine coming his way.
I'm sure he's got an upset stomach coming in his way. But if I would have known that he was going to be out back when the players let out, that he was going to take shots with fans, I'm sure I would have stuck around and done a shot with him, because when's the last, other than 2020, and that was kind of like were we at home or were we on the road when we clinched it? We were at home and then we went to Pittsburgh, or we were in Pittsburgh and then we had to go back to Pittsburgh. I don't remember.
I think we were at home when we clinched it.
I think we were at home when we clinched it.
So it was like no one there.
Yeah.
It was COVID year too.
Yeah.
Though,
So I think we were at home and then we had to go to Pittsburgh. To be at home now to clinch it and to know that we have the chance for a number one seed and a first round bye, and that was just, for some reason, it was more entertaining and more electric and more. It felt real this time. And to be at 11 wins with a chance to go 12 wins, which hasn't happened since, when was the last time we had 12 wins? Like 85, 86, somewhere around there.
Not since 99, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, we haven't since 99. I think our best one was 10 wins since 1999. I think it's our best record, 10-6.
I think they were 11-5. The 2020 COVID year going in, but we have not won 12 games.
All right,
since 99.
Yeah,
so it's wild. It's been a long time.
It's been a very long time, and to know that we're going into week 18, being able to rest instead of week 18, wondering if we win and then these 7 stipulations happen, we might be able to get into the playoffs. The fact that we are actually in on week 17 is just, it's remarkable. It's like one of the things I told the Browns. I'm like, one of the two things that's got to happen with these Browns backers clubs to get us members and to get us all hyped is you either got to go deep in the playoffs, or we're going to have back-to-back winning seasons, because we haven't had back-to-back winning seasons yet since 1999. And we've done we've gotten out of the first round beating Pittsburgh, but we couldn't get out of beating Kansas City, even though that was kind of a lame game too, because you can't do a headshot on Higgins and then not call it and then call a fumble out of bounds. So that was nice officiating again. I don't want to be fined though.
We talk about that a lot.
That turned the game right there.
I always point to that anytime somebody complains about the refs. I just show the picture. I'm like, what about this?
Yeah,
what happened here?
Yeah.
No, but so let's kind of look at this week's game a little bit. How are they? Obviously they're out of it, and we talked about how the Bengals fans are pretty quiet this year. When they do speak up, is it just kind of it's just an off year? Joe Burrow's coming back next year. We're going to be just as good as we were, or is it like does the town want to fire everyone?
The town is more like, another year, another like this. It just varies from a large range of excuses and upsetfulness and everything else. Right now, I'm going online right now to see what the Bengals tickets are going for now, because I looked at them the other day and I think the cheapest ticket was like $37. So I'm trying to see what they're going to go for now, because I might just end up going to the game just to be fun anyways.
Yeah, I will say this: I've we've had our ups and downs as Browns fans, and I'm a little embarrassed to admit this, but I've seen Browns tickets for the last game of the season when we were well out of the playoffs and it was like snowing or something, literally be $1. So
Yeah. Well, yeah, literally. I mean, if it's snowing up in Cleveland, yeah, people aren't going to go to it. Right now, the cheapest ticket's $61. So, I mean, I'll probably end up going to the game just to support the Browns and scream for the Browns.
Absolutely, and you just get to rub it in Cincinnati's face when our backups to our backups to our backups to our backups beat them. So,
yep.
But no, so what is the city down there besides the Browns backers? Obviously, what is the Cincinnati faithful think about the Cleveland Browns? Are they talking about us at all, or is there anything at all being said?
Some fans are glad that the Browns are in. A lot of them are happy that the Steelers aren't officially out yet, but we're just happy that they're not going to get in. Hopefully, they got a long road to get in. They got to hope a couple of the NFC South and I think the Broncos or something have to lose, so they got a long road to get in. But they still have a possibility. Most of them are happy that the Browns are in. They just don't want like the Steelers to be in. So I think they're happy about that. Some of them you get like, I don't really care. Some of them are like, good for you. You finally know what it's like. It just varies from who you talk to. A lot of them are, but a lot of them are like, if we can't be in, I'm glad they're in.
Yeah. No, so like last year, I know there was a huge contingency of people that was, they were saying, Cincinnati's in the playoffs, and this is Browns fans I'm talking about. They were saying we need to root for Cincinnati because they're an Ohio team and we want them to win the Super Bowl. But we, on this show, we're firmly against that. We're like, it's still a division rival. Are you nuts? Like, we never want Cincinnati to win a Super Bowl ever. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't want Cincinnati to win a Super Bowl because the fans are obnoxious, and that's all I got to hear about how they have a Super Bowl ring and that, because our 6 before it was called a Super Bowl doesn't count, which absolutely blows my mind because it's a championship, and the NFL was harder back then. You can play 3 plays and you're coming out. There was people out there that was playing offense and defense and going in on special teams and getting concussions and knocked out and then getting smelling salt and thrown back in the game. And back in the day, like you would see old photos of like Otto Graham getting his head taken off and he's back in there on the next play throwing a bomb to Marion Motley or something. And you're going, how do these players do that back then? Because you couldn't get away with it now. So it kind of blows my mind to listen to them go, hey, at least we made the Super Bowl. And it's like, but you don't have a championship. You don't have a ring. You have 2 AFC championship trophies in a case, and that's it. We have AFC North, or we have division championships in our case. We have championship rings in our case. We got all that stuff. So I just tell them to be quiet, at least win something once and then talk to me.
Yeah, no.
They just got their second. Think about this. They've been an organization since 1968, and they just finally put in their second Hall of Famer this year, who, honestly, I tell everybody he was 20 years too late. He should have been in 20 years ago. Ken Riley doesn't lead the NFL in interceptions for almost 2 decades and not get into the Hall of Fame. He should have been in there 20 years ago. I mean, I know a lot of Browns fans that share that same sentiment. When you're a great player, you're a great player, and you should be in. And he was a great player, but you've only put in your second Hall of Famer since 1968. It's like, come on, I think we've put in 2 since then, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 1. But I know Joe Thomas.
Joe Thomas. There's going to be another one here soon because I'm pretty sure in the next few years, Josh Cribbs is going to get in as returner. So. Last great returner, but
I think the next major one to get in is going to be Joe Bitonio.
As far as when he retires, yeah. I mean, I would agree with that, and they've got a couple guys on that line that are probably going to be borderline.
Well, it depends on how long they keep playing at a high level. Brian, so I'm sorry if I missed this. Are you from Northeast Ohio originally, or were you born and raised in Cincinnati?
Born in Youngstown, Ohio, but I moved down to Cincinnati when I was 9 months old. So in 1986, I became like a big fan of football. I was 13 and I was like, man, I liked Cincinnati's offense, but I really fell in love with Cleveland's defense. I was a big Hanford Dixon fan and I was a big Clay Matthews fan. I was like, man, I really love their defense. They just smother and kill people like Michael Dean Perry, the rest of them. And then about 91 was my senior year, and all my Cincinnati friends were like, oh, you're either with us or against us. You're a traitor, blah, blah, blah. And all my Cleveland Browns friends were like, we don't really care which way you do. We're loyal. We don't really care what you feel like doing. So it was more like one was forcing me to be a fan. The other one was like, if you want to be a fan, go ahead. If you don't, fine. And then they hired Dave Shula, who was Don Shula's son, who coached Division I AA. And I was like, this team's just going to trash. So I was like, you know what? Since 1992, I pledged my allegiance to the Browns 100% without rooting for both teams. And then when we were out of the league, I didn't really vote for anybody. I kind of adopted Carolina because I lived in Carolina for a while, and so I moved down here when I was 9 months old and been a Browns fan since.
Nice.
Awesome.
No, and so with all that being said, and again, that's a good story because we kind of see that people tend to move away from the area or move away from Ohio in general. There's a lot of transplants from the state of Ohio, or even within the state of Ohio, and you guys help move these Browns backers organizations all over the place and keep them going and keep them vibrant and alive. But with all of this being said, we talked about the Browns, how they're doing this year. We talked about the Cincinnati fans, everything else. Even though this game has absolutely no meaning this weekend, what is your prediction for this game, knowing the Browns are probably going to be resting their starters? And hell, Cincinnati might rest their starters too because there's nothing to play for.
I really don't know how this game is going to turn out, to be honest with you. I mean, the heart of me says, yeah, I really want the Browns are going to win. They're going to dominate them. But I mean, it wouldn't break my heart if we didn't win the game either because we don't have anybody starting. I mean, we have our third stringers and fourth stringers starting, and they may still play like Mixon or Chase and that for maybe a quarter or two, just so they're not rusty or whatever, and then bring up the score and then take them out. So I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what the score is going to be. It wouldn't shock me if Cincinnati won. It wouldn't shock me if Cleveland blew them out this weekend. Now, if we were going for the number one seed and everything else, I would have made a prediction of like 34-13 Browns because I know that we would be playing hard and that defense would be smothering for that number one seed and for that first round bye. But with everybody sitting, resting, getting that 14 days rest that they really need to get ready for the playoffs, which is huge. Because no other team really has that right now. Baltimore will have it. Baltimore will have like the one extra week than we will because obviously they're going to rest their starters next week because they don't have anything to play for. They locked up number one, so there's no point in getting them injured. So they may have an extra 6 days of rest than we do. But everybody else has got to play this weekend, and they've got to play for everything this weekend. I mean, it's just crazy to me to think that Miami has had control of that AFC East, and they could actually lose it to Buffalo this weekend. It's crazy to me to think that Jacksonville was supposed to be the preseason dominant. You got three people that are tied with the same record that one of them could sneak in and win it. So, there's a lot of teams playing for playoff hopes this weekend, and it's nice to know that we're not. We're just resting. Yep. So I really don't have a score prediction. I mean,
well, we're going to hold you 2-1 anyway. So.
All right, let's go 21-17 Cleveland.
I like it.
Love it.
I like it. I actually, we'll get to our predictions later in the episode, but I have it as a close game as well, just because it's going to be backups versus backups versus backups. This is just all backups. So before we get going here, though, Brian, I do want to mention that we are brought to you by who, Kenny?
Seaside Events is the official cruise event provider of the Cleveland Browns and the organizer of the Browns Fan Cruise.
And so with that in mind, they did run a competition for Browns backers. However, that is over, and the winners were announced. It was the Browns backers of Pinellas that won that competition. However, we still want to say that we will be emceeing multiple events aboard the ship, and there will be 17 alumni joining the cruise that fans will get to mingle with like they're normal people. So for anybody that's thinking about going but hasn't gotten tickets yet, make sure you get those tickets because it's going to be a lot of fun.
Cabins still available.
Yep. And then one last thing for us, we do want to mention to you and your chapter and anybody else watching to not forget to call into our Hot Take Hotline. And what this is, it's a voicemail that we've set up for Browns fans to literally call in and vent. That could be happy venting, that could be sad venting, that could be angry venting. It could be all the above in one single voicemail. But just it's set up for fans so they can call in and talk about the Browns and just get whatever they need to off their chest. So what's the number for that, Kenny?
330-227-8080. We'll throw it on the screen here on the video version as well. But again, that's 330-227-8080. We'd love to hear from our Browns faithful down in Cincinnati.
Yep. And so before we we bring this interview to a close here, Brian, I do want to ask you if you have anything to say to Cleveland fans that maybe they've moved away from home or in a new area or missing their fellow Browns fans or potentially thinking about joining a Browns backers chapter.
So joining a Browns backers chapter is a lot easier than you think. The Browns this year actually set up a new website. It's brownsbackersworldwide.com. And you can actually find a chapter close to you a lot easier. You'd be surprised how many chapters there are in different cities. Cincinnati actually has 4 chapters in Cincinnati, 4 official. We have one that thinks that they're a Browns backers bar, but they're not. They're not official. They like to break rules and stuff, but I won't mention them. But we have 4 in Cincinnati alone. And there are people that didn't even know that there was one. So you definitely want to go on Browns Backers Worldwide, put in your zip code or put in where your city you're at. And you can do that if you're visiting too. We've had visitors come in all the time. Hey, I'm from so-and-so. And, we'll make them an honorary member for the day. So we'll give them like the wristband so they can get the discount on the drinks and the beer and stuff for us. Cause we want to set that good example of, hey, we're a club that likes to have fun. We hope that you come back to us. We hope that you spread the word to us. So you definitely can find out where we're at by joining that, or now with Facebook, there's lots of Facebook groups. So you can pretty much put in like Browns Backers Cincinnati and it'll list all the Browns Backers, or Browns Backers Virginia Beach, and it'll list it for you. So it's very easy nowadays to find a Browns Backers club than it was probably about 10 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say this, you brought up the fact that if you're traveling, especially if you're traveling anywhere with the team, for example, if they're playing in Cincinnati, look up the Browns backers groups in Cincinnati, because most of the time those Browns backers groups are having big parties when the Browns are visiting their city. So
yeah, it seems like a lot of those are like the night before they have those big Browns backers bashes. So definitely a fun time. It sounds like from the backers that we've talked to this year, it seems like that's pretty commonplace.
Absolutely. And so, but listen, Brian, it has been absolutely amazing having you on. We really appreciate you joining us. Thank you so much. And we hope to get down there to Cincinnati and meet you in person sometime soon.
Absolutely. Well, there's a party going on Saturday. I'm just saying, from 4 to 7. You're more than welcome.
We'll see what we can do.
Sounds good,
thanks,
guys.
Brian.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. I had fun. I appreciate you guys. Hi, this is Brian from the Greater Cincinnati Browns Backers, and you're listening to the Burning River Sportscast. Go Browns!
Good time talking to Brain, huh? Brian. You didn't tell him that you used to have a manager that anytime anybody emailed him, his name was Brian, and anytime anybody emailed him, that they said, "Hey, Brain."
Brain's like the most like quietest, like most low key, devastating insult of all time. When you just brained,
like, oh, I got brained again.
You're Brian.
Oh man,
brained. No, Brain was cool. I mean, Brian was cool. Sounds like they have a cool party scheduled, or he's going to plan a cool party for this weekend. Hopefully, some people show up because
it's going to get wiggity wild on Saturday. Because nobody has to make it to the game. They could just get blackout drunk and
that's right. We
celebrate the playoffs. Here.
We already know what happens. So yeah, good for them. Sounds like they have some the neat charity way they do the charity work down there by having their Browns Backer of the Year kind of choose where all the money goes is pretty neat. So
yep. But we did mention during the interview, and we're going to talk about it again right now on the Burning River Sportscast Hot Take Hotline. All right, don't forget to call and leave your hot takes on the Hot Take Hotline. These are hot takes. We want 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 hot takes. 330-227-8080.
330-227-8080.
330-227-8080.
330-227-8888. Call now. Operators are?
Not standing by.
There's no operators. Just an
Once
answering
again,
machine.
nobody's there.
Just your hot takes.
Don't expect it.
All right, guys. That's enough. That's enough, Kenny. Kenny, that's enough. Let's take a quick revenue break and then get back here and do the preview for the Week 18 matchup that doesn't mean shit against the Cincinnati Bengals.
So hot.
Hell yes.
Towpath Distillery. Towpath Distillery, an award-winning craft distillery located in Akron, Ohio. Towpath Distillery focuses on high-quality spirits carefully made in small batches. Towpath's lineup includes an ultra-smooth, award-winning premium vodka, a small batch silver rum made from the highest grade molasses, an American craft gin made with 9 botanicals, and a blended straight bourbon made from corn and rye. Towpath Distillery, now available locally and in 46 states. Visit towpath-distillery.com to place your order online or find an OHLQ retailer near you. Towpath Distillery, handcrafted, award-winning, small batch, local, and family-owned. All Cleveland Coffee. All Cleveland Coffee is a coffee company that launched earlier this year in Cleveland, as the name would suggest. Founded by Browns legend and Hall of Famer Joe Thomas and 6-time heavyweight champion of the world in the UFC, Stipe Miocic, along with a team of several other brilliant Clevelanders. All Cleveland Coffee is on a mission to give 1 million meals back to the community through an official partnership with the Greater Cleveland Food Bank. How will they do this, you ask? Well, with every bag of beans purchased, 3 meals get donated to the food bank. It's such an awesome idea. A bunch of great individuals were involved, and the result is the best coffee in Cleveland, bar none. It comes in 3 roasts, light, medium, and dark. The dark is what Joe Thomas enjoys every day. I myself and my co-host here, Kenny, are medium roast guys. All Cleveland Coffee. Visit all-cleveland.com today to order your coffee and donate a few meals in the process. All Cleveland Coffee. Ethically sourced, premium roasted, and 3 meals donated for every bag purchased. So we are still trying to pin down our last couple Cleveland Browns fan cruise interviews. We got 2 left.
What the hell was that?
What is happening?
I know what that is.
What's that?
That is the official signal to remind you that the Cleveland Browns fan cruise is just 67 days away.
That's right. March 11th, we set sail for 5 unforgettable days at sea with nearly 20 Cleveland Browns alumni.
Cabins are still available, and if you haven't booked yet, you're wrong.
You're wrong.
So don't be wrong. Get right. Get it right. Make that a resolution in 2024 to be right.
Yours truly, the Burning River Sportscast, is going to be emceeing several events on board, including the opening day and closing day pool parties, as well as a special event on day 3 in the auditorium. And we'll probably be conducting some interviews that we'll release later.
Who's got at least 6 thumbs and is going on the Cleveland Browns fan cruise?
The Burning River Sportscast!
Yes.
All right, so that'll take us to the Week 18 preview. They finally didn't advertise it. It's been a while. I haven't been posting it because they have the whole up there anymore. All right, so this week we have the Cincinnati Bengals, guys, and for the first time since I can remember, I don't give a shit. I'm not even going to ask you about matchup previews or opposition research or any of that stuff because I've got nothing in this one. Right now we're waiting to see. We're not waiting to see anymore. They just announced today that the Browns will be resting their starters. I would assume that Cincinnati's going to be resting some of their starters as well because they've got nothing to play for. We've got the 5th seed guaranteed. They're guaranteed out of the playoffs. And the Browns are historically dinged up right now. So I would think that, yeah, they're going to take every opportunity they can to rest.
Yeah, look, we said a minute ago, this game being on a Thursday night with the Jets to clinch was kind of a blessing in disguise because even though it was a short week to have to play, they now have kind of this mini bye built in, and then the fact that Cincinnati's eliminated, we've clinched, the seeding doesn't matter, can't be changed. You kind of have another week built in where you can just rest guys, and you have another week leading up to the playoff game.
Yeah, it's got best case scenario for the Cleveland Browns.
Best case. I'm usually not a guy that's in favor of rest your whole team before the playoffs.
In this situation, it's different.
In this case, this team needs as much help and as much time to get healthy as they possibly can.
Yeah.
So this literally could not have played out any better. The only matchup, anything that I'll even talk about in this game is I know we signed Jeff Driscoll. I know our Browns backer mentioned this.
Is it going to be our 5th quarterback starting?
Jeff Driscoll was
Hell yes.
a long-time backup in Cincinnati.
I forgot DTR went on IR, so we need and PJ Walker sucks ass. So I'm sorry, PJ Walker. We don't hate you. You're just not very good at football.
Well, I don't know. PJ Walker may still end up getting the start here because I'm sure the Browns want to at least remain competitive. But it also wouldn't surprise me if they just started Jeff Driscoll and said screw it, because they may want PJ Walker for the playoffs. So
for whatever reason,
that's the only thing I think is a little bit interesting is you have kind of this ex-Cincinnati quarterback now all of a sudden on the roster. Maybe he gets the start this week against his old team.
I hope he does now.
But yeah, I mean, outside of that, look,
nothing.
Team is still beat up, needs a lot of time to rest. And the more time, the better. I don't want to see a single guy playing this week that they're going to play in the playoffs. I agree. Put them move them to practice squad, move them to wherever you have to, put them on pup lists, whatever, and sign guys off the street or from the XFL and just let them run around and play schoolyard ball out there. I don't care if we lose 100-0.
Doesn't matter.
Get these guys the rest that they need so they're ready to go for the postseason.
I agree. So as a team, though, the Bengals are 8-8, coming off a blowout loss to the Chiefs, fighting to finish above 500. The Browns have nothing to play for. This game is not going to be the emotional, physical game the AFC North games typically are. I suspect this game will be one that a lot of people turn off by halftime because it's just boring. But it could go either way.
Well, here's the other thing, too. Is we just talked about the fact that I don't want to see any of our players play in this game. Cincinnati's in a very similar position because whether they go 8-9 or 9-8 at this point, it's a wash season. They've missed the playoffs. I mean, there will be hell to pay if Joe Mixon goes down with a torn ACL or if Trey Hendrickson goes down with some kind of collarbone injury. You don't want any of your starters to miss the beginning of next season when Joe Burrow comes back healthy.
Yeah, so this could go one of 3 ways. It's either going to be a blowout one way or the other, which it could be either way, just because neither team has anything to play for. Or the third scenario is going to be really close in the sloppiest game you've ever seen on an NFL field in your life.
Yeah.
So, but with that, Kenny, why don't you catch us up on the injury report? Or are we just going to skip that for this week?
I mean, we can do an injury report real quick.
All right, injury report. Go as fast as you can.
As fast as I can. I'm the one-armed man, as fast as I can.
Does that make you faster? You're more aerodynamic?
So much more. Actually, you know what's kind of funny is the Bengals are relatively healthy. They've got 5 guys on IR. And then Jalen Davis, cornerback, is listed as out right now for the week. So that includes Joe Burrow. That's not a lot of guys that are hurt. They can field the team if they wanted to, if they want to win this week. On the Brown side of things, obviously things still not great. Elijah Moore, still in the concussion protocol, was released from the hospital Friday after staying there overnight, but is still in the protocol. Bajorquez, punter, still listed as out. Amari Cooper with the heel, still listed as out. Dustin Hopkins, kicker, listed as out. Agbo Akinronquo, still listed as out, but still not on the
oboe, like the instrument.
On the IR, which again he has the torn pec or a partially torn pec, so I don't know if he'll play another down this season or not. And then Anthony Walker still listed as out as well. The only other one, let's see, Mike Ford left Thursday's game as a questionable with a calf injury and did not return. So another one to keep an eye on. But really, honestly, I don't want any of these guys to play this week, so I'm fine with all of them being out. But hopefully, as the extra time that we've kind of picked up here in the schedule allows all these guys to come back healthy for the playoffs.
I agree. So before we get to closing the show out with King of the North here, players to watch real quick. It's slim pickings out there with everybody sitting on the bench this week watching from the sidelines. But Kenny, you got a player to watch? Anybody? Any backups that you've been wanting to see play?
Yes. But no, honestly, I think the coolest storyline is Jeff Driscoll. I hope he plays, and I hope he beats his old team in the Bengals.
I agree with that. Bone, you got a player to watch?
Let's go Pierre Strong. You know,
Oh, yeah,
let's see
he's
some
probably going to get
extended to pure strong carries and just hopefully
He
put
probably
together
will
a
be
big
the
game.
feature back for the Browns in this one.
We might run for 300 yards. We might actually win.
It's going to be a blowout. I got Ronnie Hickman because I think they're going to work on getting shit, why is it slipping my mind right now? Starting
Delpit.
No.
Safety.
No,
Juan Thornhill.
Free safety. Juan Thornhill. Thank you. There's a blonde moment. I'm blonde.
Strawberry blonde.
Yeah, Juan Thornhill. I think I think he's close to being healthy. He's kind of been in and out for the last few weeks, and I think this couple weeks off is going to do him a lot of good. But Ronnie Hickman will play in this, and he'll play pretty much the whole game. So I want to see, obviously the interception return for a touchdown this week. Want to see if he can keep that going. But that'll take us to the King of the North. Okay, so in case anyone doesn't know by now, one, you really haven't been paying attention, but two, this is our year-long AFC North Pick'em competition. At the end of the season, whoever comes in last place gets punished. In the offseason this past year, Kenny had a gross of eggs thrown at him in the Muni lot before a preseason game. Kenny, how did it feel?
It felt bad.
Like real bad?
Really, really bad.
I froze the eggs. So
I vowed never to lose the King of the North again.
Here we are. We'll get to that in a second. We're still working on the punishment for this year. We got to really come up with that because people need to know what the loser, whoever that may be, is what's going to happen to him. So off the top of your head, guys, Kenny, what do you got for the loser?
You could drop the loser off in Amsterdam in the red light district. I hear it's really dangerous.
Sounds exciting.
Bone, what do you got?
First episode for next year. Loser has to eat really hot pepper every 10 minutes on the 10 minutes during the podcast.
Oh, wow. Like, does it get progressively hotter?
Yes.
Hell yes.
We talked about the one chip challenge, but that guy actually died doing that.
Like, this is actually Hot Ones? Like, you are Hot Ones?
This,
like,
this feels worse.
Once you get to hot takes, it's going to be... Yeah.
Oh, man. I love it.
I don't like that.
But anyways, once we figure out what that's going to be, we will let you guys know. But let's get into things right now. First things first, I want to remind everybody that I am still the reigning, defending, undefeated, undisputed King of the North until next week when Zach will take the crown, most likely, because there's only 2 games left, and I'm 2 games behind him. So if he picks the same as me in either one of these, he's going to officially be the King of the North. But for now, I'm the King of the North, so suck it! Everybody can suck it. Also, Kenny is where he belongs in last place, and he will remain in last place, and he will be punished. Kenny, how does it feel to lose
you
King of the North?
You don't know
again?
that yet. The season hasn't ended yet.
You're 25 and 29.
If you're still the King of the North until the end of the season, I'm still not the loser until the end of the season.
All right, next week we'll talk about it. But do you have anything to say about coming in last place again?
God, fuck you guys. Look, I'll say this. Tried real hard. The AFC North has proven to be yet again challenging to pick games in. There were a lot of injuries this year. Even the Browns. I mean, who the hell had the Browns going 11 or 12-5? Like that was not. Once Deshaun and Nick Chubb went down, you still were pretty confident in that.
No, but I will say that I did have them going 11-6 was my my record.
So. Yeah,
prediction. Very
very challenging to pick. Obviously, was a bit desperate there at the last couple of weeks and trying to pick just opposite to you guys. So I think my record may have been closer to 500, but I still would have lost, so it would have much mattered. So
feels bad, is what you're saying.
That's basically the gist of it is it feels real bad. But still, again, I think, the Bunny Ranch and a bag of cash maybe.
I don't think that's a good
punishment, or the red light district in Amsterdam might be.
No, I don't like this.
A good place to be dropped off.
No, I don't think so.
With a cameraman, just see what happens.
No, I don't like it. But yeah, I mean, our trusty board op Bone Man is going to probably take it this year. Not probably, he will take it this year. So let's just talk about the records before we make our picks. Bone is at 32-22. I'm at 30-24. And you, Kenny, last place, worst of them all, 25-29. Feels real bad for you. You suck. So let's get into this week's matchups. There's only 2 because the whole division plays each other. The Steelers travel to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. Kenny, what's your pick?
I think this game will test Baltimore's depth. I think Baltimore's depth is better than the Pittsburgh starters. So let's go Baltimore.
Bone, who you got?
I got to go Steelers. Sorry, Ronnie. But Steelers are fighting to get a playoff spot, and the Ravens are sitting their starters. So
that's fair. So officially, Bone, I'm not even gonna come off of my pick because I'm pretty confident in it. I'm picking the Steelers as well. So officially, Bone will win this competition. But anyways, yeah, I just think the Ravens are gonna be resting everybody. The Steelers are trying to stay alive. So
I think both losers should be punished.
that doesn't make any sense. That's not the rules. You can't change the rules at the end of the season. So
I think that should be the rules for next year.
we can make them the rules for next year if you want, but they're not the rules for this year, so I'm not going to be punished. Next up, we got the Browns traveling to the southern tip of Ohio and taking on the Bengals. Some may call it Kentucky.
It's basically Kentucky, and there's
Basically
no airport
Kentucky.
there.
Yeah, Kenny, you went first last time. Bone, who you got in this one?
sorry again, Randy. I'm picking the Browns. But I'm going to go a little, what do I do? A little bigger one. Let's go 27-13.
Nice. Okay. I will go next. You'd think I would pick the Bengals because I picked the Browns record at the beginning of the season as 11-6, and so if the Bengals won this, the Browns would finish 11-6. But I'm actually going with the Browns in this one. This team just refuses to lose, no matter what circumstances thrown at them. So I think that the backups to the backups to the backups to the backups that they put in are going to have this mentality of let's not be the ones to lose momentum here. And they're really going to be playing hard. And they still are in the NFL, regardless of what string they are on the team. So I have the Browns winning in a close one, 21-20. I think that temporary kicker that we have there, what's his name again?
Riley Patterson.
Riley Patterson. I think Riley Patterson might hit a field goal to win the game at the end. So yeah, 21-20 Browns. Kenny, who you got?
Look, I agree with a lot of what you said. I think the Browns have proven to be a deep team all year long. It doesn't matter who's playing and what position. They just keep pulling out guys that continue to buy into the culture and buy into the coaching and buy into the strategy and the game plan each week and have done a hell of a job doing it. I think also Cincinnati likely is playing some backups this week. I'm going to go Browns in a really ugly, just nasty game that no one really wants to watch and no one's really even sure who won. Let's call it 11-5.
11-5. That's bold.
Nice.
So with that, let me remind you to call the Burning River Sportscast Hotline. That is right. I said it again. Don't forget to call and leave your hot takes on the Hot Take Hotline.
Hot takes.
Remember,
Hot
these are hot takes.
One hot takes.
We want hot takes. We want hot takes. We want hot takes. 330-227-8080.
We want hot takes at 330-227-8080. We want hot takes.
227-8080.
330-227-8080. Call now. Operators are not standing by.
Hot takes.
There's no operators because it's just an answer machine. And be sure to check out our gear at www.thetappingmedia.com/shop. Show specific. Click on our show. See all our shit. It's going to be great. Go buy some. And that'll do it for us. Kenny, what can we expect next week?
Hot takes?
No, what can we expect next week?
Next
Maybe
week.
some hot takes. I hope some hot takes.
Look, next week hopefully be a little bit more exciting. Not that this week wasn't exciting because the Browns clinched the motherfucking playoffs.
We clinch the playoffs, baby!
But
And the Burning River Sportscast is always exciting.
Yeah.
Always.
Hopefully we'll be much more in tune with kind of what things look like after we beat the Bengals and start preparing for a wild card round, a matchup against, it could be anybody. Jacksonville, Buffalo, Houston, Indianapolis.
Nobody knows.
We'll see. Could be really interesting depending on how the games play out this weekend, but hopefully we'll have a lot more clarity at that point. We will have a lot more clarity at that point. We can start game planning for this playoff round. So yeah, the recap of that ugly game won't be a whole lot of fun, but the preview hopefully for the wild card matchup will be.
That's the most wordy thing you've ever said.
Yeah, you're the most wordy thing I ever said. We do have another interview with Browns Backers chapter this week. This next week we have coming up a very special guest, our Browns Backers friends in Honolulu, Hawaii. So we'll be doing a little jig, a little jive with our Samoan friends down there. And then we're trying to lock down what, no grass skirts? No one's bringing one? Yaki Yaka just wore his grass skirt to the game this weekend.
Hell yes.
And my wife was like, why is he wearing it? I was like, he's Samoan. She's
He knew he was going to have a big game.
She's like, so why is he wearing that? And then, again, we are trying to lock down the final interviews for our Browns Fan Cruise alumni interview series that is taking off in 67 days.
Hell yes. So with that, don't forget to check us out on social media. Tapin Media is on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at the Tapin Media. And Burning River Sportscast, that's this podcast, is on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Burning River Sportscast, and on X at Burning River Pod. You can find our podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Plug it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Pandora, iHeartRadio, Pocket Cast, Castro, Stitcher, Good Pods, and so many more. And Kenny, do you know what that takes us to?
Facts
4 days.
Facts for days.
Let's hear them. What do you got?
I'm going to keep in...
I want you to blow my mind.
My mind.
I want you to blow my mind. Do it. Do it.
I'm going to keep in theme with the season. Obviously, we have just celebrated our new year. So we're going to have some New Year's Eve facts.
Okay, what do you got?
Number one.
I always love these. Are you talking about New York at all?
Why do we drop a ball on New Year's Eve?
Because it was safer.
Safer than what? Dropping a square? dropping a cube?
I don't know. I think you've told this one before. Go on.
I have not told this one before because this is a new fact to me this weekend. And I just learned about. We did do New Year's Eve facts last year, but not this particular one.
Not these ones. These are different.
Why do we drop a ball on New Year's Eve? Because we've always dropped balls. Turns out time balls were invented.
Everybody's balls drop eventually.
To help sailors. Long before it was used on New Year's Eve, a ball on top of England's Royal Observatory in Greenwich was dropped at 1 p.m. every day, starting in 1833, to help ship captains coordinate their navigation equipment. Similar balls were set up in coastal areas around the world. So this helps sailors tell time, latitude, and longitude. So that is why we drop balls, because we always drop balls.
Oh.
It's just natural.
Interesting.
Number two, the New Year's Eve kiss.
Oh, yeah.
Started with the Romans. Do as if you're in Rome, do as the Romans do.
Yeah.
Although things were a bit
when in Rome,
friskier back then, ancient Romans are credited with the kissing tradition because of their Saturnalia festival. It was a celebration honoring Saturn, the god of time, where all social norms out the window.
So they were probably just out in the streets just banging each other's wives.
Making out with anybody. Many of the celebration influenced the Christmas and New Year's Eve
like
festivities.
all social norms, though. So like literally, like they were just
all of them.
They were like, "I'm gonna bang your wife.
I'll make out with you. You make out with me. I'm gonna dump on that guy's porch.
Orgy in the middle of the street
everywhere.
Nice.
Yes.
This sounds crazy.
That was the gist of things.
This sounds like a Thursday night for Bone Man.
Many of the celebrations,
pagans.
Many of these celebrations influenced the Christmas and New Year's festivities that became the focus when Christianity took over the Roman Empire. And number three. If you ever wonder why time is the way it is, we measure time in months, days, and years the way we do, you can thank the Pope.
That son of a bitch.
For making our New Year start on January 1st. The Gregorian calendar was introduced in October 1582 by Pope Gregory the 13th as a revised version of the Julian calendar. It took almost 350 years to synchronize the rest of the world and get on board. Turkey didn't even make the switch until 1927.
What a bunch of weirdos.
Wow.
Idiots.
And that, my friends, is Facts for Days.
Incredible.
Hope everyone had a great New Year. Happy New Year. Hope you keep all your resolutions. Excellent job on the board today, Bone Man. My friend, Red Hot Ronnie Jams. Big thanks to the Cincinnati Browns backers, even though there's no airport there. Don't just be a part of the problem. Be the whole damn problem.
And only you can prevent river fires. Burning River Sportscast!
Sportscast.
Burning River.
Burning River Sportscast.
Burning River. So hot. Burning River. Burning River Sportscast.
Everybody
So angry.
You got one shot. Do not miss your chance to blow.
So we're going.
Opportunity comes.
Once in a lifetime.
Yo.
Burning River. Burning Rivers.
Burning River.
Good night, Cleveland.
Browns fan cruise and a Burning River Sportscast. What better combination could you possibly think of?
Motorboat? You play the motorboat? You motorboat son of a bitch. You old sailor, you.
You know what I was thinking during that interview?
What were you thinking? Nothing, because you don't have thoughts because you're a brainless idiot?
Wow.
My name is Uhtred, son of Uhtred.
And by the way, I want my foreskin back.
It doesn't matter what you think.
I honestly never thought it would come on. I did it just to get my wife.
The weather outside is weather.
The other one, the finger eating food fingers.
Yes.
Ejaculate all over my body and my genitals.
Yes.
Oh my God! My house is full of shit. He's shit everywhere.
Why do we drop a ball on New Year's Eve? Because we've always dropped the balls. Turns out time balls were invented
Everybody's balls drop eventually.
to help sailors.
Goddamn jet.
What do you mean funny? Funny how? How am I funny?
All I do is win no matter what.
They called my house on three-way, and I mean, I was fooled. I had straightened up. Was like, oh yeah. So, I mean, I remember one of my friends was like, this goddamn Bobby Bowden. I mean, he had his voice down. He was like, I'm looking for Mr. Josh Crib. I mean, it was his voice. I can't reenact it, but my friends, as soon as I said something to the affirmative, like, yes, sir, coach, I mean, I heard all these different voices laughing and snickering and, oh, we got, I was just so embarrassed.
Erroneous on both counts.
Wow.
But damn!
The leads are weak. The leads are weak. Fucking leads are weak. You're weak. You know why, mister? Because you drove a Hyundai to get here tonight. I drove an $80,000 BMW. That's my name. I live my life a quarter mile at a time.
Now, I think we've officially lost all of our more conservative viewers. So I don't think they want to listen any longer.
This is it's Mother Nature.
Where's Logo Girl when you need her?
I desperately want to make love to a...
It's Cheese
We
Girl.
need Cheese Girl now.
Oh, man.
We need Cheese Girl now.
We need
Eating
We
that
need
much
Cheese Girl now.
Eating that
We
much
need
cheese.
Cheese Girl now.
Down goes Anderson! Down goes Anderson!
Who's canceled now? Who's canceled now?
Probably me.
You making fun of fat people?
I'm not. Just you.
We're a whole race, basically.
No way. You just finger bang their salad. What?
You first get shocked, and then you get the shocker.
Hey, you like to see almost naked? That's cool, man. Whatever. No. Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you were here?
Towpath Rum. Towpath Rum, silver rum made from the highest grade molasses. Distilled 3 times in a copper pot still, this rum is designed to be the backbone of a great cocktail. So good you could drink it by itself. Available locally in Northeast Ohio and online in 46 states. Towpath Rum.
Hey, Browns fans! This is your chance to join the company of some of the Browns' all-time greats on the first ever Browns fan cruise. Picture this. For 5 unforgettable days, you're sailing across the beautiful Caribbean Sea, reliving the Browns' greatest moments, getting autographs, snapping photos, and celebrating on the beach with your favorite Browns alumni, like Josh Cribbs, Webster Slaughter, Eric Metcalf, and a dozen others. Book now and take advantage of our easy, budget-friendly payment plans on this once-in-a-lifetime, all-inclusive cruise adventure. The clock's ticking, Browns fans. To book your cabin and for more information, visit brownsfancruise.com or call 216-284-6472 today. Browns Fan Cruise, where diehard fans and Browns alumni come together for the trip of a lifetime. Don't wait. Secure your spot today and go Browns!